decided to, last week, we decided to divide the session, to separate the sessions, to break it out into two. Kasi po nakita namin na iba po talaga yung setting sa pre-elementary, yun po yung junior CASA, advanced CASA, and kindergarten. And then iba naman po yung setting natin sa grades 1 to 6. So thank you very much for being with us. Okay, we will be starting exactly at 10 o'clock. Maraming salamat po. And then you can actually to also we respect your privacy. You may opt to turn off your camera, maybe as we say hi to each other in the first, in the start of the session. We can say hi to each other, show your faces to us, and then as we proceed with the presentation proper, you can turn it off para po maka-relax lang din kayo habang nanonood ng presentation natin. So for all families, to all families who hired a private tutor, we are expecting that you invite them also in this family onboarding so that they will also understand the whole program and what's expected from them. Salamat po. Teacher Bridge, yung audio ko ba okay? Or parang meron ba siya, nag-garble ba siya? No naman. Okay. Thank you.
Hindi, bigyan mo na. Bigyan mo si Prince. Saan?
All right. Again, thank you so much for attending this family onboarding. So, meron pa po ba tayong mga hinihintay? Let us please use our chat box to communicate. Oh, there's Mrs. Castro. Hello po, good morning. There's Mrs. Connie Pestañas. Hello, good morning. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. Ano po? Okay. So, Teacher Ria, are we ready? There's Mr. Ilar. Good morning. Sige po. All right, Teacher Ria, let's start. We will be starting our session with a prayer. Teacher Ria, please take the floor.
Good morning, parents. Let us bow our heads and feel the presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we want to praise and thank you for today. Thank you for the countless blessings you shower upon us. Thank you for the gift of life, the gift of family, and the gift of parenthood. Lord, thank you for giving our children to us and for the privilege of being their parents. Help us to lead our children to you. May our children come to know you, the one true God. May your Holy Spirit help them grow in faith, hope, and love so they may know peace, truth, and goodness. Help us to set boundaries for them and yet encourage them to explore. Give us strength to carry on each day. As we gather together, grant us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the topics that will be discussed. May all the learnings and insights from this talk guide and help us as we educate not only the minds of our children, but more importantly, to educate their hearts, so that in the end, the greatest gift you have given us is also the greatest gift we can offer back to you. All these things we ask in the most holy name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good morning.
Sorry, I was on mute pala. Okay, thank you, Teacher Ria. Thank you so much, our dear parents. Thank you for, once again, thank you for being with us in our family onboarding today for the homeschool program of the Montessori de Sagrada Familia, the Play Sagradan program. So it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces, mga students po namin, nandito rin yung mga students namin in the previous years. Good morning, good morning. So let me call our ever dynamic and very passionate school principal and directress, Teacher Chris, to give her welcome remarks. Thank you so much, Teacher Kai. Good morning, everyone. To our dear parents, to our dear teachers, and also to some Sagradans who are watching. A pleasant morning to all of you. So, on behalf of the Montessori de Sagrada Familia administration, teachers, and staff, I'd like to welcome you all to today's onboarding for the Play Sagradan, which is led by our assistant principal, Teacher Kai, and our pre-elementary teacher, Teacher Bridget. Now, dear parents, whatever your reason for choosing to homeschool your child, we know that the only thing that you considered before arriving at this decision is your child. It is because of your love, because of your care for your children. That's why you chose to homeschool them. Now, in this very uncertain time where there are so many restrictions, especially for our children, and we understand that it is very safe for them to just stay at home for the meantime. And in this uncertain time, the pandemic has also affected us on so many levels. And if there's one thing that I've learned, that is out of this pandemic, that is to really not work in isolation. The Montessori de Sagrada Familia is your hub, your go-to portal, or your go-to hub for support. We hope that this will be the start of a beautiful partnership. Since this Play Sagradan was created out of Teacher Kai's advocacy for educating her children, we hope that um, this premise will also be multiplied among all the families who are enrolled in the Play Sagradan. So at this point, I would like to honor all of the parents who are joining us today, who are about to be on board for the Play Sagrada. Thank you for your dedication. We'd like to honor you for your love and devotion to your family. It is very important for families to be united during this time, and I know that that is what's happening to you during this time. And always remember that you also have a family in us. We are partners. Parents are partners. We are all in this together. I am really hoping that this homeschool will work for each and every Sagradan family represented here. Do not worry, because our teachers will also be your support system. And Teacher Kai is the people behind this program. Is they are just one email, one click, or one message away. So if you have any concerns, questions, feel free to communicate them with us. We hope for the success of your child's homeschooling journey, of your family's homeschooling journey, because your victory, no matter how small or big it is also our victory. So as early as now, I'd like to congratulate everyone. We are all in this together. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Teacher Chris. Sabi po nila, no, pag daw po virtual clap, ganyan eh. Kasi ganyan din po mag-clap yung ating yung mga deaf, mga mute. So, ganyan tayo. Kasi actually, when I was having my dialogue with our consultant, who is from the Miriam College. Kasi po, di ba sa Miriam College, meron silang mga program for deaf and mute. So, tuwan-tuwa po kami pag talagang, sabi ko nga, sila ang star ngayon kasi nagamit natin yung clap nila. No? So, thank you, Teacher Chris, for that wonderful welcome remarks. So, as we all know, no po, I assume that everyone here was able to watch if not attend our first parent orientation last June 6, at least you were able to watch the replay. Yun pong nakasama po sa ating program inquiry packet na sinend namin via email. Meron po ba dito na hindi nakapanood nun pong ating June 6 na orientation? Can you please feel free to use our chat box kung hindi po sila nakapanood. And as you call our attention, pwede nyo na rin pong isama yung inyong mga email address para po nang sa ganon ay ma-send namin iyon sa inyo. Para at least, kasi po ang ina-assume po namin ay lahat po ng sumama dito sa family onboarding ay nakapanood na nung ating orientation, yung first part ng ating orientation noong June 6. Alright. So sana naman po wala. So far, so good. Alright. Okay. So after Teacher Bridget, so I will be giving you an overview of the things that we are gonna talk for this morning. So first, I will be presenting to you the overview of our enrollment procedure para po nang sa ganon malaman natin nasa ang parte na tayo nung ating enrollment dito sa Play Sagradan. And then next, I will also be sharing with you very quickly yun pong iba't ibang learning styles ng ating mga anak. So later, I will also be discussing why it's very important for us as the learning facilitators of our children's education for school year 2020 to 2021. Why is it very important for us to identify their learning styles? And then after me, my team here, my very cooperative, very dynamic team here will be presenting to us the technicalities of how it is to homeschool your children here in MDSF. So we will be talking about designing the learning plans, even assessment at home and in the school. And then they will also be talking about the grading system. I'm sure a lot of our parents here are very curious or interested to know how are we gonna assess or how will be the grading system here at least in the homeschool program of the MDSF. And then one of my teachers also will do a learning management system walkthrough, and ipapakita rin po niya sa atin kung paano ba natin ma-access yung mga curriculum guide. Kasi po yung curriculum guide, yan po yung importanteng malaman ninyo, kasi lahat po ng mga magiging, lahat po ng instruction na gagawin natin sa ating pamamahay, sa ating mga anak, ay magbe-base po tayo dun sa tinatawag po nating curriculum guide. And then I will also be personally sharing with you the different homeschooling methods, just to, give you an idea of what homeschooling methods are available at this time. And then, I am so excited because we have a guest speaker for this morning. She is a homeschooling mom for many years now. And actually, for our onboarding, siya po talaga yung unang-una kong naisip na i-invite para po nang sa ganun ay maibahagi niya sa atin yung experience niya sa pag-homeschool ng kanyang mga anak. At actually, dun sa parents orientation part 1 natin, nandun din siya at nagsalita yung mga anak niya. So kung nakita po natin si Air tsaka si Snow, yung mga bata, talagang makikita nyo na, alam niyo yun, talagang homeschool is something na hindi pala siya, kasi minsan po yung nagkakaroon ng stigma na yung homeschool para lang sa mga, yung mga naglilipat-lipat ng mga bahay, sa mga artista, sa mga yung may mga special na mga cases, pero makikita po natin na, homeschool is something that you can choose for your child pag nandun po talaga yung desire and yung inclination to teach your own children. So later makikita po natin yan. Teacher Bridge, can you please go to the next slide? Okay, so I will be giving you the overview of the enrollment procedure. Next, teacher. Alright, so ayan po, makikita natin, nag-start tayo sa parents orientation. So that's a prerequisite for enrollment. It happened last June 6. Ito po yung sinasabi po natin na sana po lahat tayo ay nakapanood. Kasi po, more or less, the reason why we would like you to be able to watch this, we want to make sure that you're able to watch this, is because ito po yung video na tinulungan namin ang mga pamilya para mag-decide whether they're gonna push through with this homeschooling kind of education for their children. Kasi nung time po na yon, medyo simula po nung pumutok yung pandemic, lahat po yata gusto nang mag-homeschool without really knowing yung pinaka-sistema pag pinili natin yung homeschooling. And I'm so glad that, our dear parents, can I just share my gladness? Talaga pong naging good news din sa amin ito, dahil ang enrollment po natin sa MDSF Play Sagradan ay naglumagpas siya doon sa ine-expect namin, kasi we were just expecting for a few families to enroll. Our data showed there were a lot of families who were interested. Kaya lang po, ine-expect po namin after nung parents orientation, at least significant po yung magiging baba niya. Pero natutuwa po kami, dear parents, dahil sa kabuuan ng mga na-interview po naming family, after po nagkaroon ng explanation with our program coordinator, Teacher Bridget, kung ano ba tong homeschooling ito, nakakatuwa po talaga, dahil wala pa po yata sa tatlo yung hindi po sila nag-push through. So, pwede po bang mag-virtual clap din po tayo dun sa ating mga sarili, at sa talagang pinili po nating pinili po nating path para po sa ating mga magulang. And we are just so excited for you and your families, for your children, kasi alam po namin na, I was telling you last orientation, this is not a walk in the park. Hindi po ito madaling tahakin. In fact, mas pinili po natin ang medyo mas mahirap na path, kasi talagang malaking percentage po nung successful, yung pagiging successful nitong program na ito ay talagang nakasalalay po sa mga magulang. Naiintindihan naman po natin yan. Ano po? Alright. So, next is our interview with the family. Sorry, Teacher Bridge, can you please go back? Okay, so yan po nangyari. And then after po nun, after po ma-interview, nag-submit kayo ng mga diploma, ng mga TOR, ng mga facilitator of learning, ay nag-enroll na po kayo. And then after our enrollment, at nandito na nga po tayo dun sa ika-4 na bahagi, At ito po ay ang ating family onboarding. So ano ba teacher kayong family onboarding? Dito na po natin i-explain isa-isa yung mga sinasabi nating technicalities. Yun pong paano ba teacher? O sige, mag-homeschool na kami, nakapanood na kami ng mga ibang mga conferences, we were able to read articles, ano ba tong homeschooling na to? Ano na yung gagawin natin? Ngayong naka-homeschool na kami dito sa Montessori de Sagrada Familia. So, welcome again to our family onboarding. Teacher Bridge, can you please go to the next slide? Okay, so I was discussing earlier when I showed you the agenda for today's family onboarding that I will be presenting to you the learning styles of our students. So, bakit nga po kailangan? Dear parents, kami pong mga educators, nung kami po ay kumukuha nung course namin, ng mga course namin sa education, isa yan sa talagang pinagkabilin-bilin ng mga guro namin, ng mga professor namin. Bakit importante? Kasi po, in order for us to be able to have this successful transfer of learning at mag-gain po ng mga bata ang mga skills, mga competencies na kailangan nilang mag-gain, kailangan po nating malaman ano bang learning style ng anak ko. So sana po ay kahit papaano nagkaroon na rin po tayo ng idea na ang bawat tao, in fact hindi lang po mga bata, tayo pong mga matatanda, meron po tayong kanya-kanyang learning styles. However, please note that hindi naman po porket meron isang learning style na nag-check kayo na marami doon, yun lang yung learning style niya. So please know that an individual can have a mixture or a combination of different learning styles. Pero ang assignment po natin mga dear parents ay i-identify natin ano ba yung dominant. Kasi yung learning style, once we are able to identify the learning styles of our children, we will be able to use this when planning, di ba po? So, I'm sure si Mr. Elar, alam niya to kasi professor siya. So, kailangan malaman po natin yung learning style nila. Okay, Teacher Bridget. So, what type of learner is my child? So, that's one thing that we have to ask ourselves. Go, Teacher Bridget. Okay, so, ang unang-unang klase daw po ay yung visual learner. So, is your child a visual learner? So, let me read po the descriptions of a visual learner. So, mag-discern tayo, mag-reflect tayo. So, pag nag-check tayo dyan, ibig sabihin, visual learner. Kasi po ako po, I myself I am a visual learner. So, my child excels at visual activities such as art. My child enjoys books that include illustration. So, ako po yung type ng learner na kailangan kong ilagay sa graphic organizer. Pabasahin niyo ako ng paragraph, iisa-isahin ko po talaga yan para maipilit kong ilagay siya dun sa mga graphic organizer, sa mga mind maps, sa mga tables. Minsan po nagdo-drawing pa ako para makita lang yung relationship nila. And then my child is good at recognizing and recalling people, words, and places. My child is very interested in the world and objects around him or her. And my child does best when provided an example of the task he or she is working on. So, pag po, madami po tayong check dyan, malamang po ang ating anak ay isang visual learner. Mas naiintindihan niya ang mga bagay-bagay kapag binigyan mo siya ng mga pictures, ng mga tables, wag mo siyang bibigyan ng masyadong paragraph, or wag mo siyang minsan yung listening skills din niya, parang feeling nyo, bakit hindi siya, pag binibigyan ko lang siya instructions, parang hindi siya masyadong nakikinig. So, malamang visual learner siya. So, here are the following, study tips for a visual learner. So, you use different colors to create study notes, make study flashcards to use for review. So, more of pictures po. Pictures, at least kahit videos, ipakita natin sa kanya yan. Meron pong, actually ngayon pong pandemic, naglabasan yung mga free websites, applications, mga OER, Open Educational Resources, na po pwede po nating i-search lang sa ating mga browsers. Marami po yan na pwede nating gamitin. You can create mind maps, charts and diagrams when studying. Okay, and then what's the next learning style after no visual learner? Is your child an auditory learner? So when you say auditory learner, so ito po yung magaling ang listening skills niya kahit may ginagawa siya, basta nakikinig lang siya, naiintindihan niya na yon. So yan po yung mga adults na mahilig sa podcast, sa mga, habang nagda-drive, nakikinig sila ng mga anything na pwede nilang i-play habang may ginagawa sila. So here are the descriptions of a child who is an auditory learner. My child excels at auditory activities such as music. My child frequently sings, hums, or talks when playing or doing schoolwork. My child does well when following verbal instructions. Yan yung may ginagawa siya, inutusan mo lang, ang haba ng inutos mo, nag-get na niya step by step. My child enjoys talking and having conversations with others. My child listens to all the instructions before starting on a task. And my child asks a lot of questions when working on tasks or activities. So what are the study tips for an auditory learner? Okay, recite study notes out loud. So nakakatulong po sa kanila na pinagre-recite nyo rin, pinagre-recite nyo rin siya, and at the same time, kayo din, nagre-recite kayo sa kanya kasi naaalala niya lahat yon. So you can make up rhymes, songs, or stories when studying, and then you can talk through areas your child is struggling with. So open communication. Ang isang auditory learner ay isa sa mga bata na swerte ang magulang kasi di ba tayo, we tend to talk too much. So uupo nyo lang siya, makikinig siya sa lahat ng mga sermon ni mami at ni daddy. Maiintindihan niyang lahat yan. At willing siya to really sit down with you for a long period of time para makinig. Okay, next. What's the next type of learner? Is your child a reading or a writing learner? Okay, so ang answer po nito ay yes if your child excels at auditory. Sorry, hindi to na copy paste, sorry. Pero ang reading writing is siya yung pagka meron siyang pinakikinggan, sinusulat niya lahat 'yan. So if your child likes to for young learners, pagka medyo mas scribble siya, pagka meron siyang idea tapos ini-scribble niya, reading and writing learner siya. Kapag naman po ang bata ay pagka meron siyang pinapanood or meron siyang pinakikinggan ng mga teacher, mahilig siyang mag-write, mag-jot down ng notes. Ibig sabihin, reading or writing learner siya. So what are the study tips for this type of learner? So write study notes out by hand, you create checklists to guide studying, and then you organize study notes using headings and lists. So yan po yung mga type ng learner na mahilig pang mag-design nung mga nung kanyang mga notes. Nako, madami pong ganyan sa grades 4, 5, 6 and above. All right. So what's the last type of learner is the kinesthetic learner. Nako, yan po, lalo na po sa pre-LM, labas na labas yan. If your child excels at physical activities such as sports, if he or she has a hard time sitting still while learning, if your child enjoys hands-on activities or those experiential activities, if your child enjoys active learning activities like drawing or study games, or if your child prefers to jump straight into a task and get started, wala nang paligoy-ligoy, then 100% siya po ay isang kinesthetic learner. So, yan po yung, actually, I've been an early childhood educator for years now, and ako po, meron po akong mga anak. Actually, yung pangalawang anak ko po, pasok na pasok po siya sa kinesthetic learner. Kasi po siya yung, wag mo siyang kakausapin na patitingnan, yung bang, let's sit down and talk, look at me in the eye. Ang attention span niya, wala po siyang special need, pero ang attention span niya talagang very short. Tama pa naman sa age na, pero shorter than yung mga ibang mga idara niya. Pero pag po siya ay naglalaro, tapos meron din siyang, basta parang kailangan niyang mag-move in order for him or her to understand the concept na tinuturo namin. Like for example po, meron when when his teacher taught the class about colors, nakita ni teacher, ni-report pa niya sa akin na the teacher has to parang let them jump on the colors para mas, alam mo yon, mas maging interested siya at mas naintindihan niya. Alright? So, ang mga kinesthetic learner po ay talagang kailangan nilang kumilos. Yan yung language nila. What are the study tips for kinesthetic learner? Okay, so you have to create practice tests to use while studying. You have to turn studying into a fun activity or game. Nako, talagang kailangan po medyo as the facilitator of our children's learning, medyo mag-a-adjust talaga tayo. Hindi po talaga, I'm so sorry to tell you, our dear parents, no, hindi po masyadong magwo-work kay kinesthetic learner yung parang traditional way of studying. That's the reason, basically the reason why I was encouraging our parents to identify the learning style of your child. Kasi hindi talaga sa kanya mag-work yung upo tayo or lagi na lang, puro na lang mahabang mga worksheets. Kailangan from time to time talagang we adjust and we turn our mga assessment into, yung akma dun sa kanyang learning style. Alright. Okay, next teacher, Bridget. Okay, next teacher. Parang doble siya. Okay, sige lang, next lang. Alright. Ayan, alright. Thank you, Teacher Bridget. So, now that we are able to at least have an idea of the different learning styles of children, now, we will be getting our hands dirty, no? So, ito na po yung medyo kailangan nyo na talagang mag-focus kasi dito na po i-explain ng ating mga teachers ang mga step-by-step procedure of homeschooling in MDSF. So, kung naaalala nyo po dun sa ating parent orientation, pinakita ko po yung parang mahabang, actually hindi naman siya ganun kahaba, parang mga 5 na mga tables na step-by-step na pagkakasunod-sunod ng ating, kumbaga yung parang magiging proseso nung kung paano ituturo, kung paano i-assess, hanggang sa mag-end yung school year. Natatandaan po ba nila yon? Okay. So yun yung first, yun yung merong curriculum guide, ibibigay po yung school na curriculum guide. After namin ibigay yung curriculum guide, doon po kayo magbe-base ng mga activities na ituturo nila sa kanilang mga anak. So again, sana po naiintindihan po nilang lahat na wala pong activities na ibibigay ang ating school sa mga anak nila kasi po yung pagbibigay ng activities, yun po ay yung sa ibang program po natin, yun po yung sa Fly and Safe. Basically, that's the difference. Aside from the Fly and the Safe programs, having teachers, yung po lahat ng activities na gagawin ng mga bata ay manggagaling kay teacher. Pero dito po sa ating Play Sagradan program, lahat po ay manggagaling sa inyo, my dear parents, or sa mga tutors na hinire ninyo. Alright? Clear naman po tayo doon. So, okay. So, now, ipapakita ko lang po yung importance ito. Pwede nyo pong picturean para at least mas mag-guide po tayo ng mabuti as we go along our homeschooling journey. So, what is so special about this curriculum instruction assessment triad? So, the reason why we would like to show this to you is para maintindihan po natin yung ginagamit naming kumbaga basis of our lesson plans. So anong importance sa curriculum assessment instruction? So kung makikita nyo po, itong curriculum na to, ito yung ano ba yung kailangang malaman ng mga bata. Ito pong curriculum na ito ay nanggaling, ang gagamitin po natin ay yung binigay po ng ating Department of Education. Dahil po yun ay ang pagsunod natin sa batas. Okay? So ang MDSF po ay sumusunod sa curriculum na binigay ng Department of Education. Pinirescribe po nila. Pero dahil po tayo ay isang pribadong institution, we have the right to to further enrich for as long as we are meeting their minimum learning competencies. So for as long as lahat po ng mga nakalagay dun sa curriculum na yon, nandoon po yun dun sa ating curriculum sa MDSF, pwede po natin siyang dagdagan. So after po nating malaman yung curriculum, pupunta na po tayo dun sa instruction. Nakikita niyo po yun, pakanan siya. So itong instruction na po na yan po yung kung paano ba natin, ayan po yung ginagawa ni teacher. Based dun sa curriculum guide na binigay ni MDSF, ngayon po si teacher ay gagawa na ng instruction, gagawa na ng kanyang lesson plan. At iisipin na niya, paano ko ba i-introduce tong lesson na to? Ano ba yung mga skill building na activities na ibibigay ko? After naman ng instruction ay yung assessment. Okay, kailangan po, dear parents, align po yan. Later on, our teachers will emphasize or highlight from time to time kung ano pong importance niyan. Okay, so now I have the honor to present to you one of my teachers, a very passionate teacher. She really treats her students as her own. Nako, ang lungkot ng mga estudyante niya ay lungkot niya din. Ang kaligayahan ng kanyang mga estudyante ay talagang kaligayahan niya din. Talaga pong this teacher is really known to be as, very motherly. Wala na po talaga ako masabi. She's been with us for 7 years and counting. So, I have the honor to present to you Teacher Ria, who will show us how to design learning plans. Teacher Ria, take the floor, please.
Okay, thank you, Teacher Kai. Thank you for that kind words. Good morning, parents. First, I would like to express my admiration to all of you for taking the challenge of being teachers to your children. Have I known homeschooling a long time ago? Probably. I'll be one with you, no? Isa rin ako sa mga support of this advocacy. So indeed, our home is the first school of our children, and we, their parents, are their first teachers. Let me share some personal with you po. One of the greatest blessings I received from God is the gift of parenthood. I can say that I become a better person because of my child. As much as I can, I intend to do good things. Kasi by doing good things, hindi ko na kailangan mag-lecture sa kanya. Kasi I believe na ang pagtuturo sa bata ay sa pamamagitan po ng paggawa. So para maipakita ko sa kanya kung ano yung mga dapat niyang gayahin, ginagawa ko yon sa aming pang-araw-araw na buhay. So actually, a short sharing. When he was in grade 5, I was his teacher in character education. It was called character education pa po at that time. So it was a very challenging experience for the both of us because ang dami kong isinet na restrictions kasi I would not want him to be tempted na because I am his teacher, ma-access niya yung laptop ko, and then he was able to see some of the quizzes, the test questions. So naging rule namin na bawal niyang hawakan yung laptop ko. And then it was a very challenging kasi ayoko rin na makaramdam yung mga students ko ng favoritism na because he is my child, I am treating him differently from the others. So another challenge for me and for him. Sometimes na nakakalimutan niyang tawagin akong teacher, but meron kaming agreement na, anak, when we are inside the classroom, hindi mo ako pwedeng tawagin mommy. You have to call me teacher. So there was one instance lang to na nakalimutan niya, pero mahinang-mahina yung boses niya. And when he realized na nasa loob kami ng classroom, binawi niya kagad yun. And inulit yun ng malakas na teacher kasi may itatanong siya. So it was a challenging but one of the most rewarding and fulfilling part of my life. Okay, so let's start na po with our business for today. So I was tasked by Teacher Chris to discuss, Teacher Kai rather, to discuss with you how to design our learning plans for our kids. So to start our session for today, i-define po muna natin what learning plan is. Okay, so a learning plan is comprehensive, customizable, and multi-day plan for instruction and assessment. So siguro along the discussion, you will be hearing the words instruction and assessment more often kasi ito po talaga yung focus natin, no, in education. Okay, so sabi natin, instruction is the purposeful direction of learning process. Meron tayong purpose. meron tayong goal bakit natin itinuturo yung mga direction na ito. And for them to learn. Okay? So there are three most important things that we need to keep in mind as we design or we create our learning plans. Yung iba pong points dito na-discuss na rin or na-mention na rin ni Teacher Kai. So first one is to know our child. No? The beauty of homeschooling, mga parents, is that you can personalize or tailored fit to your child the learning plan that you will be creating or designing. Okay, so I have here two samples of learning plans po, no? We have, if you opt to do the daily lesson plan or the daily learning plan, Teacher Bridge, kindly click on the link. Okay, so ito po yung sample daily learning plan natin. So, as the title denotes po, no, connotes, it's daily, ibig sabihin every day po. So every day, you can set your activities for your child. So you can note yung mga important parts of the lesson plan po natin dyan. We have the learning objectives, no, that I will be discussing later on. The teacher's activities, kayo po yung mag-design yan and mag-iisip. And then we also have yung mga worksheets or practices or drills that we are going to give our children to better assess yung kanilang progress. And then we also have there the resources, the materials that you can use, and also dahil ma-utilize natin ang technology ngayon, meron tayong mga applications that we can use. There are a number of that in the internet. Okay, thank you, Teacher Bridge. And then the other one naman po is the weekly learning plan. So kung alin po dito yung madadalian kayo. Just like the daily lesson plan, ang weekly learning plan po natin also includes yung ating learning objectives. Kasi that is very important eh. When we design our learning plan, ang una-una natin titingnan is the learning objective. And then, yung weekly learning plan namin, ito po yung weekly learning plan namin dito sa MDSF. Bali, it is divided into two sections. One is for the teacher's activity and the other one is for the learning activity. So, maaari po kayong mamili alin yung sa tingin nyo magbe-best na mag-suit sa inyong schedule or activities nyo as a family. So, you have the, you have the right to decide on which one to choose. Thank you, Teacher Bridge. So aside, okay, unang-una nating dapat malaman is to learn or to know our child. The beauty of homeschooling, as I have mentioned earlier, personalized po yung magiging instruction natin sa bata. So unang-una, alamin natin yung abilities, background, and prior knowledge ng ating mga anak about a certain topic. Meron na ba silang mastery? For example, sa math, ang unang topic halimbawa sa math in grade 5 is fractions. Gaano na yung alam nila about fractions? Do they already have mastery? And how can we know these things? Okay? We can administer a diagnostic test, no? To assess yung kanilang prior knowledge as well as their mastery of the lesson. Okay, so that's one. Another way to know our children is, as mentioned by Teacher Kai, by knowing their intelligences. Okay. So, kasi, nung ako po ay nag-aaral, I remember, ang intelligence is measured by the IQ, no? By intelligence quotient. So, meaning to say, pag magaling kang magmemorya, pag magaling kang mag-solve sa mathematics, ikaw na yung top sa klase. Pero ngayon, very unique and different na po ang mga bata. So ngayon, meron na tayong tinatawag na multiple intelligences. So there are mathematical logical, sila yung mga magaling mag-compute sa math, yung minention ni Teacher Kai kanina, kinesthetic or body smart, and then meron din namang mga visual, meron ding mga, yung tactile, yung mahilig silang maggalaw, yung magbuting-ting. Okay, so very important na alam natin yung intelligence and as well as the learning styles of our children. Kasi when we design our learning activities, suited kailangan doon sa anak natin, doon sa bata natin. Otherwise, baka magkaroon tayo ng problema in terms of yung catching their attention. So kailangan talaga siguro beforehand, pag-aralan nating mabuti ang ating mga anak. Kilalanin natin silang mabuti and pwede rin tayong tumuklas pa ng mga bagong bagay about them na gagamitin natin para sa pagde-design ng ating learning plan. Pangalawa naman po, we have the subject matter. Okay, what are the things that your child must know? Ano yung mga bagay na dapat niyang matutunan? Kung grade 3 siya ngayon, ano-ano ba yung mga bagay na to? You may refer to the curriculum guide provided by the school. Kasi ito nga po yung sinasabi ni Teacher Kai kanina na meron tayong susundin na learning objectives and competencies na given po ito mandated by law, prescribed by the state. So, kung ano yung natututunan ng grade 3 pupils sa Luzon, yun din yung natututunan ng mga grade 3 pupils sa Mindanao. Kaya, when, for example, for grade 6 po, we have what we call NAT. Pag nag-take sila ng standardized test, well, kahit na naka-homeschooling yung pong ating mga anak, masasagot pa rin nila kasi yung subject matter natin ay naka-angkla doon sa curriculum guide provided by the school na prescribed naman ng DepEd. Okay, and the last one is our learning materials and resources. So since we are teaching from home, it is best to utilize the materials which are available around us. So for example, sa mga science experiments, pwede tayong gumamit ng mga bagay na nandoon na sa bahay natin na in replacement. Halimbawa, meron kayong reference na book. Sa book, ito yung mga materials na kailangan. Tapos, wala kayo ng materials na yon. So, you can look around the house, ano yung pwede nating substitute materials for that. And we are also very blessed in this time that we can also maximize the use of technology. So, as we prepare our lesson plan for this ODL, distance learning, we found out na napakarami pong resources that we can find in the internet. Videos, reading materials, articles. So, hindi po tayo problema, hindi tayo magiging limited dun sa mga bagay that we can use to enrich yung ating mga anak. So, yun yung tatlong bagay. So, una, we have to know our child. Pangalawa, we have to know our subject matter. And lastly, our materials and resources at home. Okay, and then ngayon naman, as we plan for instruction, meron lang po akong 8 bagay. There are only 8 things that I would like you to take into considerations as you create your learning plans. So una, one is content. So ano po ba yung content? The content includes the important facts, the concepts, the skills, or the vocabulary or important terms that you intend to cover. So siguro as you go along, paggawa natin ng learning plans, ano ba talaga yung mga importanteng bagay that I need to teach my child dito sa specific topic na to? Okay? So kayo po yung magde-design na para sa inyong mga anak. And then also, number 2, goals. Yung goals po natin are our end products. What are our goals for our children? Let us remember that the real goal of education and of school is to make our child a good person and becoming a more capable person than when he or she started. So sabi natin, ano ba yung goal natin? For example, in science, why are we teaching waste management? Bakit ba tayo nagtuturo ng waste management? Is it just simply segregating yung degradable from biodegradable, from non-biodegradable? Merong higher purpose. Ano yung goal natin? Ang goal natin doon is to preserve our nature. No? Kasi in the end, pag hindi natin ito inalagaan, sila din naman yung mga future generations din natin yung magsasuffer. So, aalamin natin yung goal natin. Bakit natin to kailangang ituro? Ano yung kalalabasan nito after natin ituro? Okay, thank you, parents. And then, third is our objectives or what we call the learning competencies. These are the expectations from your child na kailangan niyang ma-accomplish after a certain topic or discussion. So, learning competencies aim to hit the standards prescribed by the DepEd. Sabi ko nga po kanina, yung goals, yun yung target natin. Yung learning objectives, yun yung mga paraan, maliliit na steps natin kung paano natin mararating yung ating goal. So, we can always check on our curriculum guide for the learning objectives. Okay? Next po is our timeline. Okay? Or simply the schedule. Now, it is very important to schedule the things that you would like your child to learn. So, it also means the sequence of events and how you would like to teach a certain topic. Diba, sa buhay naman din natin, nagsiset din po tayo ng timeline. So, mahalaga rin na sa pag-design natin ng learning plan, gaano ko ba katagal ituturo yung topic na ito? Sa tingin ko ba, after kong maituro, let's say 3 days, enough na ba yun? Okay. Kaya mahalaga din po na as we create the lesson plan, titingnan din po natin yung development. As we go along designing and creating our learning plans, we have to note of the development of the learning process. Dito po papasok, Mommy and Daddy, yung ating mga learning activities. No? The learning activities play a significant role in learning. Activities must be developmentally appropriate. For example, I am teaching edukasyon sa pagpapakatao. Merong mga guide questions na pagka ibinigay ko sa grade 3 pupils, magre-reflect sila, hindi pa nila mauunawaan kasi let's say for example, yung concept na yon pang high school students. So, we are going also to put emphasis on the learning activities that we are providing our children. As we design our lesson plan, our learning plans, ito po ba ay developmentally appropriate para sa age ng aking anak? Okay, so those are the things that we need to keep in mind. And number 6 po, practice. Cliche it may sounds po, pero sabi, practice makes perfect. So especially ito yung mga skill building activities po that we can do. So for example, sa math, we can do drills. Kasi doon natin magkakaroon ng mastery yung ating mga anak. And then, yung practice kasi to be able to know whether they have understood the concepts we taught them. So we provide them opportunities to practice, and more practice, more opportunities you provide, the better chance they have to master the expected outcome. So sabi natin, sa math, meron tayong mga drills, sit works, worksheets, okay? Isingit ko ulit yung subject ko, edukasyon sa pagpapakatao. Kasi ako, naniniwala ako na ito talaga yung essence of teaching eh. So sabi natin, for example, sa edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, you are teaching honesty. Ang edukasyon sa pagpapakatao po, medyo hindi siya ganun ka-measurable katulad ng ibang subjects eh. Pag binigyan niyo sila ng pen and paper test, they may get perfect score. However, when you observe them in real life, okay, for example, kaayusan at kalinisan, nagagawa nilang sagutan ng perfect sa exam. Pero pag pumunta ka halimbawa sa kantina o sa kusina ninyo, na-practice ba niyo yung orderliness? So we give them opportunities. And this is our practice. We give them opportunities para ma-i-apply nila in their everyday life yung natutunan nila. So how do we give them opportunities para sa kalinisan at kaayusan? We give them assignments. Okay, sa bahay, anak, dahil ang homeschooling natin will start at 8 o'clock, you should be up by 6:30, okay, to help me set the table so we can eat our breakfast before we have our lessons for the day. So very important yon, opportunities. Ganun din sa mga academic subjects, practice, skill building activities po. 7, evaluation. Ayan. Narinig natin kanina, hi teacher Kai, no? Curriculum, instruction. Yan, and evaluation. Evaluation naman po, 3 bagay. Una, to measure our child's progress. Nasaan na ba yung aking anak dun sa itinuturo ko? Pwede na ba akong mag-move to the next topic? Or kailangan ko pang magbigay ng more practice? Okay. We evaluate also to identify their strengths and weaknesses. I always tell my pupils, anak, yung weaknesses natin, they can also become our strengths. Kasi lahat naman ng bagay na de-develop natin. Okay? Sa totoo lang po, ako medyo takot pong magsalita sa maraming tao. But over time, nung unang beses ako humawak ng mikropono sa gym, nanginginig ako. But over time, yung weakness ko na yon, unti-unti nakikita ko nagiging strengths ko na rin siya. So, ganun din tayo sa mga anak natin. Meron tayong mga anak na nakikita natin medyo mahiyain o medyo magaling siya sa English pero mahina siya sa math. Then we give them more exercises in math. Meron naman, ang galing-galing na niya sa English pero struggling siya sa language. Then, you can focus on giving more practices naman doon sa subject na yon. And lastly, measure, identify, and last is to assess the effectiveness of a particular instructional strategy. Yung bang learning methods na in-apply natin sa bata, effective. Natuto ba sila? O kailangan nating mag-isip ng panibagong approach? Kasi medyo after giving several practices, sa tingin natin hindi naging effective yon. Evaluation po is both beneficial to you and your child. So assessment will be further discussed by Sir Jomar later on. No? Marami po siyang i-prepare para sa atin. And the last po is reflection. Parents, very important po ito sa atin. Sometimes, as parents, iniisip natin tayo yung magaling. Alam na natin yung mga bagay na to kasi pinagdaanan na natin. Pero ako po, I must admit, as a parent, ang dami ko pong natutunan kasi ibang-iba yung times ko ngayong panahon ng anak ko. So sometimes, there were times na nagpre-pray over lang ako sa madaling araw. Why? Kasi hindi ko na maintindihan kung ano yung tumatakbo sa isip nila. So tayo rin parents, as we design our learning plans, it's very important to reflect. What are the things that worked? Ano yung mga bagay na nag-work? And what are the things that did not work? And why? Alamin natin yung rason. Bakit hindi siya nag-work? Inuhos ko naman lahat ng panahon ko para mag-focus dito sa subject na to. But yung mga practices and drills ng anak ko, mababa pa rin ang scores niya. This is very important para ma-design natin yung mga susunod natin na learning plans na magsuswak na o mag-fit na sa ating mga anak. We can make adjustments and modifications where necessary. Okay. So, I would like to share with you one of the most famous quotes from Benjamin Franklin, Teacher Bridge, ang ating, yan, sabi po dyan, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So, sabi natin, we are educating our children because we are planning for their future. However, parents, as we plan for their future life, as we plan for their future careers, let us not forget to seek God's plan for our children. Kasi yun lang yung paraan para maging successful ang ating mga anak. Ako, I'm very proud of my son. This pandemic, ang mga nakikita kong changes sa kanya, even if he is confined in our house, hindi siya nakakalabas talaga. Pero this is the time na kung kailan siya hindi nakamiss ng Sunday Mass. Okay? And as I was attending the Mass last Sunday, nauna siyang mag-Mass nung Saturday, nag-anticipated Mass siya because yung kasi niya is parating. Habang nagmimisa ako, sabi niya sa akin, Mami, ang galing ni God. Sabi ko, why? Kasi may tanong ako sa kanya kagabi. At nasagot niya ngayon while listening to the second homily. So, parents, ipinahiram sa atin ng ating mga anak. Ito ay ating responsibilidad. At yung responsibilidad natin na yon, I know na pinipilit nating magawa. And as we plan for our children, let us always pray to God to guide us in knowing kung ano talaga yung plan ni Lord para sa ating mga anak. And with that, I'm ending my sharing with you. Thank you for listening and God bless your families. Thank you.
Thank you, Teacher Ria, for that very enlightening presentation. Actually, Teacher, in order for me to masyado pong masyado talaga tayong maraming matututunan dito sa onboarding natin. Actually, I was just telling when we were having our dry run last week, I was just telling our teachers para talagang parang binibigyan natin ng crash course yung mga parents, no? We believe po kasi as the facilitators of learning this coming school year for your children, you really need to have you have to have ideas in order for us as your homeschool provider, in order for us to ensure that there's gonna be a learning that will take place. At least kahit po wala po yung talagang foundation na nagkaroon kami bilang guro, at least mabigyan po namin kayo nung overview, more or less, how we do things in MDSF as the teachers of our institution. And then, kayo naman po, paano nyo siya apply sa inyong mga tahanan while you homeschool, while following po yung ating mga guidelines, yung ating mga school policy, at yung ibibigay po nating mga mga pag-assist. Okay, so Teacher Ria, thank you again. Actually, ang natutunan ko talaga dun sa sinabi ni Teacher Ria, ang pinaka-importante is yung part ng reflection. Kasi sabi nga nila, I have been talking with a lot of homeschooling families. Yung po mga parents, sinasabi nila talagang pag narinig niyo yung mga unang days ng kanilang pag-homeschool, talagang meron dyan yung talagang parang the school at home setup, yung parang, kasi yung actually yung friend ko na yon, teacher din kasi siya, tapos nag-homeschool siya. Tapos sabi niya, kung paano daw siya maging teacher, in-apply niya nung nag-homeschool siya. Isipin niyo po, dear parents, guro na siya. Pero nung nakita niya na in-apply niya yon sa bahay niya, medyo, parang feeling niya medyo matigas yung approach. Parang sabi niya, hindi pala mag-work pag yung ginagawa ko sa school na medyo, okay, let's sit down, talagang matigas yung instruction. So, wag po talaga tayong matatakot na yan nga, merong times na mag-fail tayo, pero dahil magre-reflect tayo, dahil dun sa magre-reflect tayo dun sa mga mistakes or yung mga hindi pala nag-work. It doesn't mean pala, sorry can I just correct myself? It's not really a mistake, pero because open ang parent to making modifications, doon po papasok yung success nung magiging learning po ng ating mga anak. So one of our parents who are here with us today, sabi ni Mr. Ilar, my take from Teacher Ria's sharing, don't assume to know more than your child. That's good. Reflect on the things that don't work and adjust accordingly. Si Sir Ilar po ay, for everyone's knowledge, si Sir Ilar po ay professor. So, we're speaking the same language, no? Kahit po kami mga guro. Don't be too hard on yourselves, dear parents. Basta sure ako, when we are already nearing the end of the school year, pagtatawanan na lang natin lahat ng mga parang mga bloopers natin ng mga first few months natin. And I'm just so excited for you, our dear parents, sa totoo lang. I'm excited for you to really, get to know your children more. Ito pala siya. Kaya pala si teacher, madalas siyang ganito mga kwento. Ganito pala siya as a student. Ganito pala siya as, tao. Diba? Minsan po kasi if we tend to always correct sometimes, minsan yung mga anak natin, hindi na natin masyado nakikilala sila. Pag alam niyo yun, yung hindi filtered. So, I'm so excited. Sabi ko nga po, talagang kung paano lang talaga natin tingnan tong pandemic na to. It's really not, a good thing that happened, pero it's really how we look at it now, no? It's really, for me, for my family, it's really a blessing. I mean, yun nga po, dahil nga po, sanabi rin ni Teacher Ria, siya ngayong pandemic, yung anak niya mas nakaka-attend ng mass, there are a lot of parang mga quality time together. So, There, thank you, Teacher Ria. Thank you for teaching us and showing us the difference between a daily learning plan and a weekly learning plan. So sa school po kasi usually ang ginagawa namin weekly learning plan. Pero I've been talking with some homeschooling parents. They do daily learning plan. Mas nag-guide po sila doon. Depende po talaga sa inyo. And parents, it doesn't mean naman po na pag sinabi natin weekly or daily, kunyari for tomorrow, ngayon ako magpa-plan. Based on my interview, tsaka sa mga conferences din na nakita ko, and dun po sa naging trial namin ng mga anak ko nung April and May, nag-try po kami na mag-homeschool. Nakita ko mas maganda yung sinasabi talaga ni Teacher Ria na we have to plan at least ahead of time para nang sa ganon, hindi tayo yung nakakakuha pa tayo ng mga tamang resources, nakakapag-research pa tayo, may ample time to really do our research, hindi yung medyo bahala na lang. Alright? Okay, now, eto naman teachers, after naman nating eto naman our dear parents, after nating malaman kung paano mag-design ng learning plan, so naintindihan na natin yung curriculum, yung ibibigay po namin sa inyo, tapos ngayon naman po ay yung tinuro sa atin ni Teacher Ria, based on the curriculum, paano tayo magde-design ng learning plan? Paano natin ituturo sa kanila to? Paano natin i-introduce yung topic na to? Ngayon, tanungin naman po natin mga sarili natin. At after natin gawin to, how am I gonna identify if there's a learning that's taking place or at least my child is learning? You know, along the way, you might be asking yourselves, parang di ako confident. Parang natututo ba talaga yung anak ko sa pinagagagawa namin? So, ito pong assessment na to ang makakasagot sa ating mga tanong. And then, actually, this part is divided into two. So, first is yung assessment at home and yung assessment naman in the school. Kasi nga po, partnership to. However, ang difference natin ay mas malaki yung magiging role ninyo sa pagtuturo at sa pag-assess kesa dun sa role ng school. So, to further elaborate on the assessment at home, let me give the floor to one of our teachers in the elementary department. He is how will I describe this person? Ako, very passionate din siya. I don't know, tama ba yung magiging description? Kasi medyo may pagka-workaholic si teacher. Talagang hindi niya gusto niya whenever he does something, talagang he makes sure that he's giving his best, his all. Ayaw niya nung parang mga so-so lang na mga outputs. So, with much honor, I would like to present to you the department head of the upper grade school in the elementary department. Actually, mabiling-mabili po ang teacher na to ngayong school year na to dahil siya yung madalas na nakikita natin sa, well, for those parents who also enrolled in Fly and Safe, minsan nagwo-walk through din siya. So let me give the floor to our department head in the upper grade school. He's been with us for 8 years already. Sir Jomar, hello.
Hello, Teacher Kai.
Hi. Sige, sir. Teach us about assessment.
Thank you, Teacher Kai, and good morning also to our dear parents, and welcome to today's family onboarding of our play program. So today I will be talking about assessment at home. So paano ba natin dapat i-assess or paano ba natin ma-measure if learning really takes place sa ating mga anak? So next slide please, Teacher Bridget. All right, so I will be talking about assessment based on an order or a memorandum prescribed or given to us by the Department of Education, which is also anchored to the Program on Teaching and Learning for a Sustainable Future of the UNESCO. So, lahat po ng mga sasabihin ko or yung mga isi-share kong input about assessment is based po siya on research done by the UNESCO and from a document given to us by the Department of Education. So let us define assessment. So I have here 6 points that you need to know about assessment. So first, all right. So assessment is an integral part of curriculum implementation. So a while ago, our dear parents, Teacher Kai, pinakita po sa inyo ni Teacher Kai yung CIA triad po natin, yung curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So I would just like to review you, our dear parents. So when we say curriculum, that is prescribed to us or given to us by the Department of Education. Those are the list of subjects as well as the list of learning competencies and objectives na dapat nating ituro sa ating mga anak. Now, yung instruction part naman ay diniscuss na ni Teacher Ria. So, sa instruction part, dun po tayo magpa-plan ng ating mga learning plan, whether it is daily or weekly. At dun po natin gagawin or i-implement yung curriculum or yung mga learning objectives and competencies given to us by the Department of Education. Now comes the one of the most integral part, which is assessment. So dito po sa assessment, dito po natin ngayon i-measure whether may learning ba na nag-take place or natuto ba yung anak natin. So sinasabi na integral part of curriculum implementation because hindi pwedeng mawala yung assessment dun sa triad natin. Kaya po siya tinawag na triad. So later I will be comparing it to a tripod. So yung each of those yung curriculum, instruction, and assessment para silang mga leg ng tripod. So pag tinanggal mo yung isa, it will not stand. So kaya po siya tinawag na integral part of curriculum implementation. So dito din natin malaman kung may mga dapat ba tayong baguhin sa ating mga teaching styles or kung ano ba yung mga dapat na assessment na ibigay natin sa ating mga anak. Second point. Okay, so assessment tracks and measures learners' progress. So, pag nagbigay tayo ng isang test, or whether just a simple question and answer or a feedbacking, that's an effective assessment tool already, our dear parents. So, dun pa lang, matatrack na natin or mame-measure whether natuto ba yung ating mga anak sa particular learning objective na tinuro natin for a certain subject. So, dun din natin matatrack kung tama ba yung assessment na binigay natin sa ating mga anak. So, yun po. So, ang assessment po, it is used to track and measure learners' progress. So, kung nagpa-progress ba, umuusad ba tayo? Should we move to the next lesson or not? Or may nakuha ba yung mga anak natin from the teachings that we did? Okay, third point po is to adjust instruction accordingly. So based po dun sa results na may yield natin from the assessment that we do or that we give to our students, we can now adjust our instruction or yung teaching style nga po natin. So every teacher, we have different teaching style. I'm sure kayo din po yan mga parents. You have different teaching styles na pwede nating gawin ngayong tayo po ay magiging mga homeschool teacher ng ating mga anak. So once po na nakita na natin yung mga data based dun sa assessment na binigay natin sa ating mga anak, we can now adjust yung instruction. Tama ba yung ginagawa nating way ng pagtuturo sa ating mga anak or hindi? So kung nakikita natin na merong na medyo mababa yung mga data na nai-yield from the assessment, so maybe it's about time to reflect. As what Teacher Ria said, hindi lang po tayo mag-reflect dun sa mga students natin, but also dun sa way on how we teach a certain content. So, pwede tayong mag-adjust accordingly, depende sa result na makukuha natin from the different assessment tools na ibibigay natin sa ating mga anak. Okay, now, assessment is also an ongoing process. Excuse me. So, as sinasabi po namin sa education, learning is a continuous process. It is an ongoing process. So, hindi po nahihinto ang pagkatuto ng bawat isa. So, kahit kami pong mga teacher, even makatapos kami ng aming bachelor's degree, meron pang master's degree, may PhD, and then after that, hindi pa din naman matatapos yun doon. So, kailangan tuloy-tuloy po ang ang pagkatuto ng bawat isa. So kagaya po dito sa assessment, it is also an ongoing process. Hindi not because we already administer a certain assessment tool to our children for a particular learning competency or objective, ay tapos na po dun yon. So after assessing, we may now reflect. So after the reflection, i-adapt ngayon natin kung ano ba yung mga natutunan natin based doon sa assessment or doon sa reflection na ginawa natin. And from that, we will now instruct again or teach again our students. So ongoing process po siya. It is a cycle. Hindi po siya napuputol, hindi din po siya humihinto. All right, and next po, it is a joint process. Assessment is a joint process. Why po? It is a joint process between the teacher and the student. So, a teacher cannot assess whether learning takes place kung wala po tayong mga students na tinuturuan. So, kayo po mga, our dear parents, you will be the homeschool teacher of your child. So, it is a joint process between you as a teacher and your child as your student or as your learner. So, pinagtutulungan po yan ng teacher and student. So, hindi lang po assessment ay ibibigay natin ng credit only to our teacher or to our learner also or to our learner. So, hindi din po porket mataas yung makukuhang grade ng ating mga student or mababa ay dahil lang sa kanila yon. So, meron din tayong kinalaman dun as their teacher dahil nga po ang assessment is a joint process. Okay, so ito po dapat medyo nasa unang part to. So, assessment, it helps us to identify, to gather, to organize, and interpret information. So, we can get different information depende sa mga assessment na bibigay natin. So we can get quantitative information. We can also yield qualitative data or qualitative information based on the assessment tools that we will give to our child. So from those assessment tools, it will help us to identify ano ba yung mga information na kailangan nating ma-identify from that assessment. It helps us gather and organize and also interpret those data. So bawat score po na makukuha ng ating mga anak sa bawat assessment tool na ibibigay po natin or sa bawat sagot nila sa mga simple tanong po natin, meron pong mga interpretation or meron pong mga reason behind those answers, behind those scores po. And that's the rule or that's the role or goal of assessment po, to help us identify, gather, organize, and interpret those data, those quantitative and qualitative information. Okay, so our dear parents, as I have here again our CIA triad. So na-discuss na po ito ni Teacher Kai. So, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So, nandito na po tayo ngayon sa assessment part. Or, medyo biased po ako sa assessment. Maybe because it is the most critical part of the learning process. Dito na po kasi natin makikita kung tama ba yung ginagawa natin as a teacher, if learning takes place, kung natuto ba yung ating mga anak. So yan pong tatlo na yan, dapat po lagi silang magkakasama. All right, so as I have said, assessment is a process that is used to keep track of learners' progress in relation to the learning standards and the development of the 21st century skills. It also promotes self-reflection and personal accountability among our students about their own learning. So having said that, our dear parents, we have here the learning competencies from our curriculum part. So dun po sa triad natin, that's under the curriculum part. We have here the instructional activities or the instruction part of our triad and our classroom assessment or the assessment part of our triad. So makikita nyo po in between each component, meron po tayong equal sign. It means that the learning competency must be equal to the instructional activities and it also must be equal to the classroom assessment. They must to be aligned. Kailangan pantay-pantay po sila. Hindi po pwede na mas mataas or mas sobra yung isang component compared dun sa other. So I will give you an example of how to align learning competencies, assessment, and our instructional activity. So, as I have said a while ago, our triad, the curriculum, instruction, and assessment triad are just like a tripod of a camera. The camera being our learner. So, can you imagine if one leg is shorter than the other two? So, maapektuhan po yung camera or our learner. It will not stand properly. Ganun din po kung mas mahaba yung isang leg compared to the other two. That is why they have to be aligned. Okay. So, here is an example of the alignment. So, a learning competency, for example, identify nouns in a sentence. Nakuha po ito sa curriculum guide prescribed to us by the Department of Education. So, from this learning competency, ano po yung mga instructional activities na pwede nating ibigay sa ating mga anak or yung mga instructional activities na pwede nating ilagay sa ating mga learning plans or lesson plans. So first, we may do sentence analysis in which they will identify the nouns on those sentences. We may also do naming activity. So ito po yung dapat una natin ginagawa. Yung pinapakilala muna or pinapa-recognize muna natin sa ating mga student or sa ating mga anak yung noun sa sentence. Then we may also do story reading and then later they will identify the nouns in each sentence from that story. Papasok naman tayo ngayon sa assessment. So, sa assessment, you may just do encircle all the nouns that can be found in the given sentences or from the given sentences. So, as sa nakita nyo po, so from identifying, from analyzing the sentence, and from encircling the nouns, iisa po sila. Ibig sabihin, they just do identifying nouns. So hindi po natin pwedeng ang paggawa sa ating mga student pagdating sa assessment is to make a sentence out of a noun. So that's another competency naman po, our dear parents. So I hope you understand this part po. I have another example for math naman po. So for our math learning competency, so our learning competency is to add 2 to 3 digit numbers without regrouping. So we may do as instructional activities, flashcard drill, solving problem activity or problem analysis, or a simple board activity using whiteboard and marker wherein your child will solve or will add 2 to 3 digit numbers without regrouping. And then for classroom assessment, they may solve given problems by adding the numbers without regrouping. So, kung meron na pong regrouping naman yung part o yung ipapa-assess natin sa kanila, that's a different learning competency. Ibig sabihin, hindi po siya align kung ang ipapa-assess po natin or yung magiging assessment po natin is all about adding with regrouping or yung tinatawag po natin na may carry before po. So, yun po. Kailangan lang po natin tingnan, our dear parents, let us always identify the verb doon po sa ating learning competency. So nakalagay dito, add. Nakalagay kanina sa English example natin, identify. So if those are the verbs, so dapat ganun din po yung gagawin natin sa ating instructional activities as well as sa ating assessment. Okay, so I have here Bloom's taxonomy. So this is the revised one. Actually, it is an inverted pyramid, but sa totoo po, ito ay isang triangle. So makikita po natin dito yung mga lower order thinking skills. So we have remembering, understanding, and applying. And then we have here the higher order thinking skill, which are creating, evaluating, and analyzing. So our dear parents, kayo po na magiging homeschool teacher ng inyong mga anak, let us always aim to assess the higher order thinking skills of our learners. So, as you can see, mababa po, nasa mababang part po ng pyramid, yung remembering or these are the facts or the knowledge yung mga dapat po nilang kabisaduhin. So, nasa mababang part po siya. So, let us always aim na matutunan po ng ating mga student yung mga higher order thinking skills. But our dear parents, let us always make sure na meron po tayong alignment again ng instructional activities and assessment. So maybe sasabihin nyo na parang kabaliktaran naman to nung kanina. So for example po, identifying. So after identifying, we will not stop naman po from just identifying the noun. So after identifying, kung na-make sure po natin na natuto na yung anak natin or naintindihan niya or alam na niya how to identify a noun from a sentence, we may now do or we may now elevate our assessment by doing analyzing, evaluating, or creating, or even creating something out of that learning competency. Okay, so our dear parents, makikita nyo po sa ating curriculum guide na ibibigay po namin sa inyo. So we have there the content standards as well as the performance standards. So when we say content standards, these are the things these are the things that your child need to know. Ito yung kailangan nilang malaman. Ngayon naman po, yung performance standards, these are the things that your child need to do. Paano ba nila magagawa yung mga learning competencies na tinuro sa kanila. Hindi lang, sa content standards, paano po nila malalaman yon? Ngayon po sa performance standards, how will they do it or how will they apply it in a real life situation? So iyan po yung mga bagay na dapat nating i-assess sa ating mga students. So aside from the learning competencies, yung mga learning competencies, they make po a bigger standard, which are the content standards and the performance standards. So performance standards are the things that your child need to know. I mean, content standards and performance standards are the things that your child need to do or how they will apply the content in a real life situation. So iyan po yung mga kailangan nating i-assess at the end of the day. So aside from the specific learning competencies na i-assess natin sa kanila every day during the learning process or even at the end of a learning process, ito naman po mga content and performance standards yung dapat nating i-assess sa kanila at the end of a particular period, a unit, or even a quarter. So now, how do I check my child's learning assessment at home for elementary students? So paano nga ba natin ma-check? So, kanina po, na-define na po natin kung ano ang assessment. So, now I will be showing you kung ano ba ang mga uri or mga kinds ng assessment. So, we have two types of assessment. We have formative and we have summative assessment. So, when we say formative assessment, next slide, please. All right. So these are the words that pertains to formative assessment. It means strengthening. So when we do formative assessment, it is our thinking that we are strengthening the skill of our child or of our student. It is also assessment for learning because we may do it any time of the learning process. We may do it before the learning process. We may do it during the learning process, or we may do it at the end of a particular learning process. Or kaya nga po, kung mababalikan nyo po yung mga experiences ng inyong mga anak, di ba po meron every day, may mga seat work na pinoprovide yung mga teacher natin, yung mga 5-item worksheet, 5-item seat work sa notebook ng mga anak natin. So yun po ay tinatawag nating formative assessment. So it will give us an idea kung naintindihan ba ni student yung certain or yung isang objective or learning competency. So ito din po yung tinatawag nating mga learning checkpoint. So ayan po, our dear parents, formative assessment. So ginagawa po natin to check and measure whether our child learn a particular learning competency. It will also give us an idea or para makapag-decide tayo whether we will move on to the next lesson or not. Or meron ba tayong mga dapat i-adjust or sapat na ba yung natutunan ng anak natin sa isang topic. So I have here different sample of formative assessment. So as I have said, go back please, teacher. Isa pa po. All right. So again, formative assessment may be seen as assessment for learning. So teachers can make adjustments in their instruction. It is also an assessment as learning wherein the student reflect on their own progress, and it refers to the ongoing form. So ongoing po siya. Ongoing forms of assessment that are closely linked to the learning process. It is characteristically informal. Okay? So characteristically informal po ang ating formative assessment. So we may record it para po, pwede po nating i-record yung mga score na nakukuha ng ating mga anak during formative assessment just to give us an idea whether learning, uh, just just to keep track on their learning progress. So it helps us also to identify their weakness or their strengths in order to learn from the assessment experience. So we have here different examples of formative assessment. So first, we have a worksheet. So ito po yung nakikita natin na laging pinapagawa ng mga teacher sa ating mga student. Noon pong traditional classes po natin, yung mga worksheet sa math, worksheet sa science, yung mga seat work sa notebook, even book activities, yan. Yun po ay mga part ng formative assessment. Then we also have online, so we also have online games. So ngayon po, ayan, medyo madalas pong magagamit ngayon yan. Especially ngayon pong naka-ODL tayo or online distance learning. So kayo po, bilang mga homeschool teacher, you may also do that, online games. You may use Kahoot, quizzes, Mentimeter, or you may just type sa Google kung ano yung lesson nyo and then followed by online games. For example, addition online games. Tapos marami na po kayo makikita and then just record the score of your child, observe how your child do the online game, and that's a formative assessment already. Next, all right. So we have journal writing. So ito naman po journal writing, we may just ask our student what did they learn for today. So pwede po isulat nila dun yon, or we may give a question or a scenario or a situation wherein our student will answer with relation to our learning competency. For example, our topic is all about solving word problems or addition. So you may just ask them to write an addition story, okay? And then ask them to solve it also. Okay, next. Then we also have homework or assignment, but I believe sa homeschooling you also have the option to do it para naman yung mga anak nyo meron pa din silang mga time para sa sarili nila to do their homework, and then let us check or let us assess whether tama ba yung pagkakagawa ng assignment or ng mga homework ng ating mga anak. So that's a type also of formative assessment. Next, we have exit sleep. So ito po yung ginagawa din po to namin sa school. So for example, you are teaching, you are the last subject teacher of the class. So you just have to give them a piece of paper and then write on that paper their learnings for the day, or if they have question about the topic. Yun po, para mabigyan din po tayo ng idea about the questions that they want to ask the teacher or kung ano ba yung natutunan nila para for the next day, i-carry out na po natin kung ano ba yung mga information na nakuha natin from that exit sleep, from the different questions na ni-raise nila sa exit sleep. For example, nag-ask sila ng mga question. So kinabukasan sa ating pong teaching process or sa ating pong session sa mga student, it is our chance to answer those questions. Okay, next we also have feedback. So once our student do a particular activity, we should always give them feedback. Okay? So sabi nga po ni Grant Wiggins. Si Grant Wiggins po ay isang curriculum expert po at siya po ay ang proponent ng understanding by design. So sabi po niya, learners need endless feedback more than they need endless teaching. So aside from teaching them the content, our child, kayo po, you are the parents of your child, you will be the teacher of your child. So constant feedback, endless feedback. Huwag po tayo magsasawa na napunahin or magbigay ng feedback or kung ano mang mga comments sa bawat activity na ginagawa ng ating mga anak. Next, we have question and answer. So ito po, parang feedbacking din po siya. Just a simple question and answer. Ask him a question and then he will answer. So from that answer, magkakaroon po tayo ng idea whether our child learn or not. Next, we may also do mind mapping. So ito po ay para sa mga subjects like science, araling panlipunan, wherein your child may do mind mapping. So you just have to put the central idea dun sa yung main idea dun sa gitna, and then it will just branch out from the different ideas or the different learnings that your child learned from your teaching. So lalagyan lang yan ng kahit anong words na natutunan niya sa inyo pong session. So from that from that type of assessment or from that activity, magkakaroon po tayo ng idea kung ano po yung mga natutunan ng ating mga anak. Okay, so we also have board activity. So I don't know if you have your own blackboard or whiteboard at home, but you have the option to do this, especially sa mga quantitative subjects like math and science or sa spelling. You have the option to it is a very powerful tool also, a formative tool to assess whether our child learn a particular topic or not. So we may do board activity. Okay, a casual talk. Just like feedbacking, it is also a very powerful tool or a very powerful type of formative assessment wherein you will just ask your child, how was his day? Ano ba mga natutunan niya from your session? So, dun sa mga answer na makukuha niyo po sa ating mga anak ay makakaroon na po tayo ngayon ng mga idea or ng mga information. Just kagaya po na sinabi natin kanina, we can gather and we can identify different information based from the casual talks that you do. So, and then you may use those data or information to adjust your instruction or to track or to measure your child's learning progress. And then we may also do short quiz. So para mga 15-item quiz or 10-item quiz about a particular learning competency. So parang worksheet lang din po siya, or we may use also the books, yung mga activities sa books. Yun po. So short quiz is also an example of a formative assessment. So a 1-minute paper, you just have to give your child a piece of paper, and then for 1 minute they will just write their insights about the topic or what did they learn about a particular topic or a particular learning competency, or if they have question they may also write their question. So from those papers makakuha po tayo ngayon ng mga information that we may use to track our learner or to adjust our instruction and or whether to move on to the next topic or not. All right, so our dear parents, those are the examples of formative assessment. So when we say again formative assessment, that's assessment for learning. That means strengthening their skills, learning checkpoints. Yun po yung mga terms na ina-associate po natin sa formative assessment. Now, we move on to the second type of assessment, which is summative assessment. As I have said a while ago, our dear parents, formative assessment may be recorded, but it will not be graded. Meaning, formative assessment are not the basis for grading our child. It is summative assessment po. So when we say summative assessment, so kung kanina we are strengthening their skills, now, in summative assessment, it is now time for them to display their strength. Okay? It is also assessment of learning. Assessment of learning occurs at the end of a particular period, at the end of a unit, at the end of a quarter, or at the end of a group of learning competencies. So kung kanina po, learning checkpoints din po yung formative assessment. Now, summative assessment is the finish line already. So dito po ngayon natin iti-test whether our child learn the content or the learning competencies of a particular quarter or a particular unit. So this form of assessment usually occur, as I have said, towards the end of a period of a learning in order to describe the standard reached by the learner. So Our dear parents, so kanina we have content and performance standards. So dito po ngayon sa summative assessment, we will now test whether um, they understand or they learned that particular standards or whether they reach that particular standard or not. So often this takes place in order for appropriate decisions about the future learning or job suitability to be made. So judgments derived from summative assessment are usually for the benefit of people other than the learner. So yung mga data po nakukuhan po natin dito, it's not just about for the sole purpose of our child of of the learning of our child, but of other people as well, and of course of the teacher as well. So I have here different example of summative assessment. So we have your long quiz. So yung kanina po short quiz, it's just about one learning competency, one quiz. So ito pong long quiz, it can be a group or a couple of learning competencies na pwede po natin gawa ng quiz and then administer it to our child and then check whether our child understand or learned that group of competencies or unit. For example, we may also call this unit test or monthly test. You have the option to call that. Next, we have quarterly assessment. So quarterly assessment meaning the exam or the periodical exam. So our curriculum guide, our dear parents, are designed in 4 quarter. So nakahati na po siya sa 4 na quarter. So basically, every quarter, there will be an assessment to test whether our child understand or learned the concepts or the standards in that particular quarter. That's why we are doing this one. So ito na po ngayon yung mga graded, yung long quiz, quarterly assessment, and then we also have performance task. Okay, so performance task naman, so if dun sa quarterly assessment, our dear parents, yun yung minimeasure natin dun yung content standard, whether our child reached the content standard or not. Dito naman po sa performance task, what we are measuring is or are the performance standards of a particular subject for a particular quarter. So I have here some example of performance standards. Okay, so for English and Filipino, so we call it languages. So we have essays, book reviews, debates, role-plays, composition. For math, we have problem set surveys. For science, we have concept maps, prototype building, simulation. For AP, Aran Panlipon, we have leaflet, poster and slogan making, news reporting. For ESP, we have journal writing. For MAPE, we have presentation of their musical, of different musical instrument, art projects, different fitness activities and health blogs. And then for TLE and computer, we have different products or skill demonstration. But as you can see, our dear parents, this one is very traditional. Kasi each subject may isang performance task na gagawin ng anak natin. And we don't want to do that, right? Kasi po, anak naman po natin ang mahihirapan. Kayo din po, our dear parents, I'm sure you will be very stressed sa part po kapag ginawa po natin na each subject isang performance task. So, later on, my co-teacher, Sir Dan, will be talking to you or will be discussing to you about how to integrate these performance tasks para maiwasan po natin yung one subject, one performance task. So, to end my presentation for now, okay, so I have here a quotation from Paul Black. So para mas maintindihan po natin our dear parents. So sabi po ni Paul Black, when a cook tastes the soup, that's formative assessment. Now, when the customer tastes the soup, that's summative assessment. All right, so tandaan po natin the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment. So yan lang po muna for this moment for today, our dear parents, and I hope you learned something about my presentation. Thank you very much.
Yay! Virtual clap! Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Sir Jomar. Nako, ang dami ko pong natutunan. You know what, our dear parents, while I'm sitting here listening to Sir Jomar and Teacher Dia, talaga pong talagang maiisip natin, ang hirap din talaga maging teacher. Talaga pong hindi siya biro. Kaya po sinabi ko po sa inyo, we really admire each one of you for really choosing this path. a road less traveled, eka nga po, no? Talagang I'm just so thankful to the Department of Education for really acknowledging this alternative mode of education for children. Kasi nga po, kung titingnan din po natin yung history talaga, ang una naman po talagang mga guro ng mga bata, ng mga anak, ay ang kanilang mga magulang. So, talagang parang bumabalik lang po tayo doon sa dati. So, I'm just so thankful that, my team here is with me. Talagang sabi ko nga po, sorry for speaking good words about them, kasi nga po talagang isang aya ko lang sa kanila when I was conceptualizing, when Teacher Bridget and when we were conceptualizing this family onboarding, nag-ano na kami, inisa-isa na namin sila kung sino i-invite naming resource speakers, at talaga pong with no hesitations po talaga, nag-yes sila dahil alam po nila na they are one with us dito sa advocacy na to. So, ang mga natutunan ko kay Sir Jomar, ang ganda ng sinabi niya, no, maliwanag na maliwanag ang difference between formative assessment and summative. So, pagka kunyari, tinitikman ni cook or ni chef ang soup, para ma-improve pa niya yung taste, ang tawag doon ay formative. So, kung titingnan po natin sa pagtuturo, it's assessment for learning, ang formative. Yun yung parang pinaka hint natin. Dahil sa bibigyan natin ng mga konting seat work, kunyari na ituro na natin ang concept ng addition, bigyan natin siya ng konting seat work. Yun bang learning objectives na nakalagay dun sa curriculum at yung pagtuturo natin ng mga learning object or learning competencies na yon, na ano ba, kamusta ba, na perfect ba nung bata, more or less, lumalabas ba dun sa results nung formative assessment natin, nakuha na ba niya yon, or parang hindi niya nakuha. So, magre-reflect si parent, magmo-modify ulit siya ng instruction niya, babaguhin niya ulit, hanggang sa makita nila, ay ready na to for summative, ready na to na gigradean ko na. Hindi naman siya, dear parents, yung parang, okay, ito nga po yung actually mamaya, our teachers and our guest speaker will also talk about ano ba yung importanteng ingredient dito sa homeschooling na to, kasi walang mata ang nakatingin sa atin, walang mga teachers na just looking at us, pag may nangyari magi-investigate, walang ganun eh. Ano ba yung importanteng ingredient niyan? So, wag naman po, dear parents, yung puro formative, tapos puro ganyan, meron pang practice, or tapos ibibigay yung same, tapos biglang graded. Kasi anyway nga po, sabi nga po nila, pag meron tayong, pag natitempt tayo, dahil nga ayaw natin na magkaroon ng failing grade yung mga bata, pag natitempt tayo na, practicein muna sila, tapos same naman yung assessment na ibibigay natin as yung graded assessment, tsaka yun yung isasabit natin, we are not really fooling the school or other people. We are really, aside from fooling ourselves or our families, we are robbing our children that genuine education na sana po ay nakukuha nila, no? So, I'm sure wala po tayong pag-uusapan dyan. I just wanna hear it out from, a homeschooling, an experienced homeschool mom na mamaya maririnig natin. Thank you again, Sir Jomar. So now, sinabi po ni Sir Jomar yung about performance task assessment. Dati po, marami tayong mga projects, diba? So, paano po ba natin pwedeng pagsama-samahin siya? Yan naman po yung ipapaliwanag sa atin ng next speaker natin. So, itong teacher na susunod na magpe-present sa atin, he's been with us for 7 years also. Very dedicated din siya. Nako, napakadami niyang magandang ideas. Whenever I am seeking for basta mga innovations, ganyan, mga thinking like there's no box. Pag kailangan ko ng parang hindi masyadong mainstream na ideas, ito yung go-to person po namin nila Teacher Chris. So without further ado, I would like to present to you one of the subject area supervisors in the elementary department, Sir Angelo Bagadyong. Sir Dan, hello.
Hello po, good morning. Good morning, our dear parents.
Good morning, Sir Dan. Sige, can you please tell us about this integrated performance tasks? Thank
Thank you so
you.
much po. Before we start, can I ask a simple favor from you? If you are still here and you're still listening, I know it's a bit late, no? Pero kung nandito po kayo, pwede niyo po bang i-comment sa chat box ang salitang here? Maraming salamat po. Ayan. And thank you so much po sa inyong lahat. My task for today, so yun nga, medyo nasabi na ni Sir Jomar at saka ni Ma'am Kai that integrated performance tasks are possible. At as I recall, dati po, next slide please. Dati po mga minamahal naming magulang, nakapag-project na po ba kayo ng ganito? These are what we call projects way back in the 90s. Ito po yung mga inabutan kong project dati. I'm sure naabutan nyo rin po ito. Naalala ko pa yung note may design. Kapag may design yung notebook mo, mas mataas yung grade. But at one point, I wondered, bakit nga ba ito ang binibigay sa atin? Yung minsan pinapadala pa tayo ng walis tsaka ng dustpan, but to what end? Anong reason? So, parang medyo nawawala yung purpose nung isang project. Okay, so you ask, why this? Bakit nga ba itong mga project na ito? So, because before, next slide please. And next slide. Before, subjects are being treated as independent bodies of knowledge. But now, but the truth is, all ideas are interconnected. Kung kayo po ay napanood nyo na ang Lion King, I'm sure you did. Kung napanood nyo na ang Lion King, di ba po meron po sila dong phrase na sinasabi, the circle of life, all things are connected to each other. Same goes with ideas. Sa panahon po ngayon na ang filosofiya ng edukasyon ay tungkol sa 21st century learning, hindi na po fragmented ang kaisipan na ating binabahagi sa mga estudyante. Instead, they are put together to form solid ideas. And so paano ba natin magagawa yon? Through inter-subject integrated performance tasks. So these are performance tasks as mentioned by Sir Jomar. It's part of the summative assessment. These are performance tasks that are clustered together and unified by a common theme, much like the Avengers, yung mga heroes na nagsama-sama for a common goal. Okay? It is based on the thematic approach. So yan, iba't ibang idea pagsasama-samahin para makabuo ng isang malaking goal or it is driven towards a common goal. Okay, next slide please. Next slide. These concepts are linked together for the purpose of creating a rich and engaging learning experience. Tayo po bilang mga magulang, o kayo po pala, bilang mga magulang, I'm sure that you want the best for your child. Gusto ninyo, gusto ninyo na mag-enjoy sila at the same time ay natututo sila sa mga bagay sa kanilang paligid. So we want real connections to happen with what they learn to the outside world. So there must be real connections. Next slide, please. Okay, which makes learning more enduring. And when you carefully look into it, these connections are countless. Isipin nyo lang po isang idea. Tumingin ka lang sa paligid mo. Halimbawa, nakakita ka ngayon ng isang umiikot na electric fan. Just ask, bakit gumagana ang electric fan? And from there, we can derive principles from science, we can derive principles from math, and so many other things. Okay? Next slide, please. Much like a Lego, no? Yung mga Lego, kapag naglalaro sila ng Lego, you can integrate architecture, engineering, design, urban planning, so many possibilities to begin with when you are doing integrated performance task. Next slide. Also, when your child reads a book, kung saan-saan siyang lugar na pupunta, di ba? Actually, a lesson about when you read a book, a reading material, it could lead you to lessons about values and culture, even technology, yung mga, especially those in fantasy worlds. No? You can try to replicate the technology from the book itself. No? Sorry po, puro technology ang example ko because I am a science teacher. So yun po. Next slide, please. So now, how can we design these integrated performance tasks? So these are based from the teachings of Dr. Mike Rapatan. He is a very renowned curriculum expert in the country. So medyo twinik ko lang po ito ng konti for our own understanding. So let's proceed to the first step. So first thing that you need to do if you are going to do the integrated performance task is to survey and list all standard topics and output from the curriculum guide. So the first thing that we need to do is to zoom out for a bit, look at the big picture, and see which topics, standards, or outputs can be intertwined with each other. So sa atin po talaga ito nakadepende, mga minamahal naming mga magulang. It would come from your idea. So next step would be, okay, to determine integrating center or centers. So hindi naman po natin ipipilit na pag-isahin lahat kung ano lang po yung kaya nating gawin, but let's try to do it. You can begin with merging 2 subjects or 3 subjects together. Basta ang mahalaga po ay merong common theme. Okay? Siguro po, I would recommend 4 kasi 8 po ito. At least kalahati man lang, we could try to integrate that. But the ideal would be to unify them into one common theme. So, pero depende po yun sa inyo. Kung gusto niyo po, pwede po kayong magdalawa o tatlong ideas to begin with. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. Then from there, you can unpack common and related ideas. So you notice from the previous slide that I chose Araling Panlipunan and EPP as integrating centers or yung central themes ng ating mga subjects because I could feel that marami akong pwedeng pagsama-samahin dito sa dalawang subject na to. So from there, I broke them off to 2 clusters and I unpacked them based on how they can be related to each other. So dito sa ang Pilipinas bilang isang bansa, pwede nating integrate ang values ng mga indigenous people. Pwede rin nating integrate ang mga kwentong katutubo ng mga Pilipino. Pwede rin nating isama dyan ang music, arts, at PE, mga laro ng mga katutubo. So you see, there are so many possibilities that we could work with. Sa kabilang banda naman po, sa EPP, so since EPP deals with entrepreneurship or business. So pwede nating integrate dyan ang math, which is about multiplication and division. And when they work with a product or work on a product, they can, for example, they can sell a food product. You can talk about food safety, the proper handling of ingredients, and then for advertisement purposes, you can write a simple paragraph about that. Okay, next slide, please. So you're going to establish clusters of subjects that may have a shared performance task. Again, it would depend on how you look at the big picture and how you would interconnect those ideas. Moving on to step 5. So yan po yung ating mga outputs. So for cluster 1, they will do an advertisement for the Department of Tourism. So, and for cluster 2, they would set up an online business selling a food product. Kaya po nila yan because you are there to guide them naman. Okay, next slide please. Ayan po. So we can see how these ideas are interconnected to each other. Okay, so step 5 would be to create a narrative for the assessment itself. So dahil uso po ngayon ang coronavirus, we recommend that you use SOAP. So ginamit po natin to para mas madali nyo pong matandaan. SOAP could stand for situation, objective, audience, product, and standards. But it's not a hard rule. Pwede nyo po yung bawasan kung gusto nyo po ay SAP, kung gusto nyo po ay SOP, gusto nyo po SOPAS, okay lang. Baka iba po nagugutom na dyan. But what's important is that you should not remove product and standards kasi po yan po yung i-assess natin, yung product, at yung standards naman po, yun yung ating gagamitin para mag-gradean yung ginawa nila na product. But we highly recommend to use to put your child in a situation where they have to make a decision. Kung ikaw ang nandito sa story na to or sa narrative na to, what would you do? Okay? Malinaw po ba? So it's up to you if you can jumble those letters. What's important is that it must have a narrative that could be based on the real world or just a simple imaginary story, or ayun nga po, it must have a situation, a product, and standards. Okay, moving on. So paano po ba magsabon? How to soap? How should we create the performance task? So first step would be to put your child in a situation that calls for an action. So in this case, the child is playing the role of a creative director who was commissioned by the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples and National Commission for Culture and Arts in partnership with the Department of Tourism. Yan po, kaya mahalaga po yung i-research po talaga natin yung ating mga gagawing mga integrated performance task. So ang task po dito, meron siyang role bilang isang creative director. So what he would do is to create an advertisement. So next slide please, Teacher Bridget. Thank you. So you give a role to your child that he will play in the situation along with a clear and specific goal. So, yan. Kinuha siya ng ahensya, ng interagency ng tatlo to create a 1-minute video advertisement that would show the Filipino pride or the way of life of the Filipinos. So, yun yung pinaka-goal niya. It must have a clear objective. Okay, next step please. Then, include people who will be relying on your child's character. So to raise the stakes higher, somebody must be benefiting or must be affected by the situation. Mas maganda po kung tunay po talaga yung mga tao na yun. Kasi mas makikita nyo po kung paano magre-respond ang inyong mga anak, and it could start a teaching moment for you. Okay, so in this case, the video will be shown in or will be aired in national television sa prime time slot. Kayo pong bahalang mag-adjust kung gusto niyo po sa barangay lang muna or sa local, kasi po national masyado na po yung mabigat. Baka po ma-pressure yung anak ninyo. Okay, step number 4 would be to clarify subject integrations for the task. So you have to clarify this to your children na ito yung mga kailangan mong gawin. So it should have components and integrations of each subject. So in this case, yung part ng output na i-rate sa AP ay mula sa mga iba't ibang tanawin sa rehiyon ng bawat bansa. Again, the goal is to take pride in the Filipino life or Filipino culture. Okay? For MAPE, the way of life of the indigenous peoples. And for Filipino, since it talks about pagsasalaysay, that part would be taken care of by the voice-over of the story. Okay? And for ESP, which tackles about the discovery of the truth, so they can do research about the Filipino culture. So that's step number 4. Okay? And for step number 5, you have to set standards for evaluating your child's performance. Okay? It should have a tool in which they will be rated based on their performance, which leads us to the next topic of rubric making. Teacher Bridget, can you please? Thank you. So how should we design a rubric? So ang basics po ng rubric ay para po itong isang judges scorecard. Kung nanonood po kayo ng mga palabas sa TV, sa Showtime, for example, they give scores to the contestants. So, parang ganito rin po yun. Meron pong mga binibigay na criteria for judging. But in this case, you are judging your child. Alam ko po, medyo mahirap po yun sa part ng isang magulang dahil madalas nananaig ang emosyon kaysa sa pagiging objective. Alam po namin na mahal po ninyo ang inyong mga anak, pero bigyan po natin sila ng konting tough love na ma-discover po ang kanilang mga sarili. No? Hindi po yung lagi po nating ibinibigay sa kanila kung ano yung pinakamataas na grade, because it could rob them of learning opportunities which could actually make them a better person. So how can we design a rubric? Okay, next slide, please. So again, a rubric is like a judge's scorecard, which includes descriptions of levels of performance quality on the criteria. So, nire-rate po natin dito gaano naging kagaling ang naging performance ng inyong anak. Okay, next slide please. It could either rate a performance or an output. Okay, moving on to the next. So here are some examples of rubrics. Tignan po natin ang pagkakaiba-iba nitong tatlo. The first one is a holistic rubric. We have the score, a description, at nandito po ang mga descriptors per score. Okay, so it's like a general description of the performance itself. Recommended po ito sa mga small, maliliit lang na mga, I would recommend it on formative assessments because it only measures a small part of the child's learning. Okay? Moving on to the next one. Ito po ay medyo detalyado or sorry, very detailed version of the rubric. This is called the analytic rubric. So as you can see here, dun po kanina sa holistic rubric, it's just a general description. But in analytic rubric, the description is broken down into certain descriptors and levels of performance. Break down din po ito sa mga criteria. So mas detalyado po ito. So ang pwedeng maging disadvantage po nito ay marahil maging mahirap po yung paggawa dahil you have to look at you have to touch all the bases, you have to look at all the possibilities that could be included in the performance task. Okay po? But there is a trend among educators today, and in my opinion, I would recommend this for you because it's not heavy on the eyes. Kumbaga, babasahin po talaga ito ng mga bata, medyo madaling gawin. At the same time, it could give a balanced perspective about your child's performance. This is called the single point rubric. So, kung makikita po natin sa gitna, nilahad po dyan ang mga criteria. So, ito po yung criteria na pasok po sa standards, sa performance standards. Kumbaga, this is the middle ground. Yung criteria po na nasa gitna. Kaya po siya nandyan sa gitna. And then, you would rate them. So, maglalagay pa rin po kayo ng numerical grade. But the thing here is that you could give qualitative feedback on your child or dun sa naging performance ng inyong anak. So you could give qualitative feedback. What are the pros? What are the cons of your product? What are the things that you should need to work on? And what are the things that you are going beyond the standards? Malinaw po. Kasi kung analytic rubric po ang gagamitin natin, the child would still go for something extra, something special. So ito pong single point rubric could cover that. At the same time, hindi naman po sila magiging stressed na baka mag-fail sila sa isang part ng criterion. Kaya ito po, ang single point rubric is very recommended ngayon. Okay po? So now, here are some tips for making rubrics. So number one is you train yourselves to be objective. I think I have elaborated that very well. The next one is to give honest feedback to your children. You still have to criticize them in a constructive manner because hindi po nila malalaman yung mga mistakes po nila or what they can improve on. Okay, they would think that I'm okay. So what else? Ano pang kailangan kong gawin? Number 3 is to base your criteria on performance standards. It would always be the performance standards that would have the biggest weight on the rubric. Okay po? Next slide, please. So now as I end, I would like to leave this quote to you. There are 2 gifts we should give our children. One is roots and the other is wings. That's from William Harding Carter. So paano po ba natin sila mabibigyan ng roots and wings? Alam niyo po mga magulang, mga minamahal po naming mga magulang, there is no other child-centered place in the planet than the home. Ang school po ay marahil magsabi na kami ay child-centered, we are child-friendly, but there is no other place that is child-friendly than the home because, that's where charity is. that's where you really understand your child. At alam niyo po, kami pong mga teachers, we could only do so much. Kami po ay kapartner lamang ninyo, pero malaking bahagi po ng kanilang matututunan sa buhay ay nakabase po sa inyo. Yung mga sinasabi po namin sa mga evaluation, sa rubrics, sa exams, that's just a small part of their whole person. And I pray that as you take on this journey to teach your child to be the person that he would become in the future, paano ba natin siya mabibigyan ng roots and wings? So next slide please, teacher. Thank you. Para mabigyan po natin siya ng root, we have to model behavior. Gusto po ba natin na maging masigasig ang ating mga anak sa pag-aaral? Gusto po ba natin na mahalin nila ang pagkatuto? Do we want them to love learning? We have to show how passionate we are for learning. Makikita po nila yon sa inyo. And to give them wings, you have to support their dreams. We have to admit that we cannot dictate everything that would happen in their lives. Give them choices, give them options. Look at their interests, and from there, you could start building and encouraging them to be what they want to be in the future. So with that, I would like to thank you all for listening. God bless you all.
Virtual clap for Sir Dan. Thank you, Sir Dan. Naku, napakadami po nating mga natutunan. Ako rin po, no, parang refresher course ko kasi, after being a teacher for a few years, talaga pong sumabak na rin kami dun sa pagiging admin. So, ang dami at ang galing-galing po na ang sarap isipin na compared to before wherein the teachers design one project for each subject. Ngayon po, pwede na pala nating pagsama-samahin. Huwag naman pilit na pilit, no? Pilitin natin na pagsama-samahin, pero kung hindi kaya, sabi nga ni Sir Dan, kung hindi kaya, pwede naman na i-separate siya. Pero as much as possible, pagsama-samahin na natin to dahil nga po dito sa pandemic na to, ang pinaka-least na gusto nating mangyari ay makadagdag pa ng pressure at pagiging komplikado pa sa komplikadong buhay na natin ngayon. So, thank you again, Sir Dan, for showing us that it's really possible to do integrative performance, to come up with an integrative performance task assessment. Thank you so much. So, ang ganda nung sinabi ni Sir Dan, to give them roots, model behavior, to give them wings, support their dreams. So, talagang, yun nga tayo po yung pinaka-best na teacher ng ating mga anak. I remember, meron pang mga commercial dati na yung bata, kung ano talaga yung ginagawa ng mga magulang nila sa pamamahay nila, sa labas, nandun lang talaga yung anak nila, hindi nagsasalita, pero tinitingnan niya, nagmamatsyag siya, at maganda man or hindi maganda yung napapakita ng mga magulang, pagtanda niya, minsan ayaw niya yung ginagawa ng magulang, pero indirectly na ipapasa natin sa kanila. So talaga pong napaka-laki nung binigay ni Lord sa atin na role as the parents of these wonderful children. So thank you again, Sir Dan. So right now, Teacher Bridge, okay, so now, tapos na tayo sa home, i-assess na sa home. Paano naman natin pong mai-assess sa mga bata sa school? Pero before that, Teacher Bridget, bigyan muna natin ng mabilis na break, maybe restroom break. Sobrang bilis po, we can give you 5 minutes or pasensya na po, inabot na tayo ng lunchtime. Kaya lang po kasi, actually, I was telling the team, let's make it very brief, 15 minutes. Kaya lang, masyado po talaga silang generous. They feel like pagka kinompress nila ng sobra, baka ma-shortchange nila kayo or hindi nila ma-explain ng tama. Ayaw po naming i-rush ang mga bagay-bagay. So, this is what's good about doing a virtual parent orientation, ano? Hindi katulad nung pag nasa events hall tayo, naku, gutom na sila. Paano ba yan? Maglabas na tayo ng mga sandwich dyan. Pero ngayon, dahil we are in the comforts of our homes, we can multitask, we can eat our lunch, kasama ng ating mga anak, i-mute lang po natin para nang sa ganon, mapakinggan pa rin natin yung i-present. Konti na lang po yan. Okay, sige po. We'll give you 5 minutes and then we'll be back 12:23. It's 12:18 in my clock, so 12:23, let's come back po. Thank you, our dear parents. Teacher Bridget, please prepare for the assessment in the school. Thank you. Alright, we're back. Hello. Sana po ay nandito po tayong lahat. Sige, in order for me to make sure that we are all back, can you please use the chat box, no, and say, I'm back. Yan. Miss or Mr. Yai, okay, there's Mrs. Castro, Teacher Ria, hello. Miss Dr. Feliz Carpio, Teacher Charmaine, hello. Mr. Richard Martinez, okay. Alright, so ngayon po magpapatuloy po tayo. Sir Gary, Mr. or Mrs. Del Rosario, hello. Sige po, magpapatuloy na po tayo sa ating presentation. So, right now, syempre po dahil nasa elementary department tayo, unlike sa pre-elementary na kung saan wala pong numerical grade, paano naman po ba natin actually, sorry Teacher Bridget, no? Ilagay muna natin doon sa assessment at home, sorry. Okay. Quickly lang po, tapos na po tayo dun sa assessment at home. Ano naman po yung role ng MDSF para po ma-assess namin if there's a learning that's taking place in the home. So kailangan po naming malaman din yan as your homeschool provider. Sige po, sige Teacher Bridget. So paano nga ba? So we will be doing a quarterly examination for during this pandemic. Of course, we will be doing it online. Kaya lang po, dahil po sa ang DepEd, actually with all honesty, wala pa rin po kasi silang ina-out sa aming mga schools na modification when it comes to assessment, pero sabi nila meron daw silang ilalabas. Ngayon po ay hindi pa talaga siya ganon ka-concrete. However, kung ang pagbabasihan po namin ay yung memorandum nila noon pa pre-pandemic, gagamit po tayo ng quarterly examination at ito po ay iti-take ng mga bata through our learning management system na mamaya ay i-explain sa atin ni Teacher Bridget. So, every quarter, magkakaroon po ng isang quarter exam ang bata per subject. So, we will be giving you pointers to review ahead of time, before the examination week. And later, we will also be giving you the dates to remember para makapag-prepare po kayo. So, ang difference po ng Fly and Safe or ng home-based program sa homeschool program, sa home-based program, depende po sa pagkakasunod-sunod ni teacher ang mga bagay-bagay. Pero po, ang kagandahan po dito sa homeschool program, excuse me, it's very flexible in such a way na yung scope, yung sequence, yung scope, kami po yung magbibigay sa inyo nun, pero yung sequence, bahala na po kayo. At kung kailan din yung araw na gusto ninyo, kung gusto niyo mag-aral sa time na gusto ninyo, sa araw na gusto nyo, nasa sa inyo po yun. Pero for a quarter, bibigyan namin kayo ng scope, and then ito po yung magiging coverage po ng exam natin, ng quarter exam. So second, we will be having our family-led portfolio review, which will also happen online. So ito pong family-led portfolio review, Teacher Kai, ano ba to? So ito lang po basically, since a big percentage of your child's final grade per subject will we will be basing it from the performance task. So kailangan po makita namin more or less as your homeschool provider gaano yung involvement ng bata doon sa ginawa mong project. Si mami lang ba gumawa? In interview ni homeschool advisor, parang hindi masagot ng bata. Nako, baka mommy or daddy got in the picture na naawa na. So, or baka minsan nakatulog, magpo-portfolio review. So, titingnan po natin dito, gaano siya naging involved, gaano siya, makikita namin ano yung naging participation, gaano yung naging participation ng bata dun sa kanyang performance task output. So, we will be asking you to collate, actually, nung pinakita po ni Sir Jomar yung kaninang formative and summative assessment, we will really require you to collate, to make a portfolio of all the summative assessments. Yung formative, mas maganda isama nyo na rin yun. Pero ang kailangan po namin talaga makita doon ay yung summative assessments. Kailangan nakalagay siya sa isang portfolio. Bahala na po kayo kung paano nyo gustong yung traditional na folder, ring binder, clear book, basta kailangan, nasa inyo rin po yun. It's up to you on how are you going to organize it per subject ba, pagkatapos ng per subject, yung naman yung integrated subjects, dito nyo naman pinapakita, nasa sa inyo na po yun. Pati yung rubrics po, please do include them para makita namin paano nyo ba siya in-assess, in-evaluate, paano nyo ba in-evaluate yung kanyang outputs. So, kailangan po yan. Okay? So, tandaan po, kailangan po magkaroon tayo ng portfolio for our portfolio review. Pero, tatanungin nyo, teacher, lahat ba naman yan ipapakita natin or ipepresent natin kay homeschool advisor? Syempre po hindi, because it's gonna take you so much time. Baka po ang isang family umabot ng 1 day, no? So may schedule lang po tayo dyan. We encourage you to choose parang 1 PETA. Ideally po sana yung ina-integrate nyo na para marami na siyang tuhog na mga subjects, mga learning competencies. Tapos, si homeschool advisor, in our end, we're gonna use yung rubrics to assess po yung naging presentation and kung paano po namin nakita na nag-participate yung bata. So, yung rubrics po, we will be giving this to you this August para po at least magkaroon kayo ng idea kung paano namin kayo i-grade. Alright? Okay, sana po clear po tayo dyan. If you have any questions, I think we will not be having much time we will not be able to open the floor later after the presentation for a question and answer portion. But if you have any questions, please feel free to communicate with us through our chat box. Pwede po natin siyang sagutin. Sige, Teacher Bridge. Alright, Sir Jomar, can you please explain to us yung ating grading system?
Okay, so good morning again. I mean, good afternoon, our dear parents. So please bear with me po as I discuss to you our grading system. So kung gutom po kayo or if you want to eat something, you may do so po. So as we all know, the K-12 Basic Education Program of the Department of Education uses a standards and competency-based grading system. So we will be grading our students or your child po based on the standards prescribed by the Department of Education as well as based on the different competencies. So we will not just give them grades dahil gusto natin silang bigyan ng grades or kung saan lang natin kukunin. So we have to understand po that the K-12 program is a standards-based and competency-based, uses competency-based grading system. So saan po natin makikita yung mga standards and competencies po na ito? They are found or these are found in our curriculum guide. So all grades will be based on the weighted raw score of our learners' summative assessment. So what we will be grading is our summative assessment. So as I have said a while ago, we may record the scores of our student sa formative assessment po nila, but they are not the basis for grading. The basis for grading is their score or the scores that they've got during the summative assessment. So summative assessment meaning those are the long quiz, the exam, and the performance tasks. Next slide, please. So, we will be grading our students based on the content and performance standards because as I have said a while ago, K-12 curriculum uses a standards-based grading system. So when we say again, content standards, these are it identify and set the essential knowledge and understanding that should be learned. Kung ano ba yung mga dapat matutunan ng ating mga anak. They cover a specified scope of sequential topic within each learning strand, domain, team, component, or quarter. So content standards answer the question, what should the learner know? So yun po our dear parents. So for content standards, what should the learner know? And for Our performance standards, on the other hand, they describe the abilities and skills that the learner are expected to demonstrate or to do in relation to the content standard. So yung nalaman po nila, yung nalaman po ng mga anak po natin na content, they will now do it or they will now apply it in real life situations. So they answer the question, what can the learner do with what they know? How well must learners do their work? Or how well do learners use their learning or understanding in different situations? So dito na po ngayon papasok yung integrative performance task na diniscuss po ni Sir Dan. Okay, so our summative assessment, meron po tayong iba't ibang component ng summative assessment, or ito po ngayon yung component ng ating grading system. So we have the written work. So the written work component ensures that students are able to express skills and concepts in written form. So ito po ngayon yung mga summative assessment that we will be administering to our child, or that we will be giving to our child in written form. So we may do it using quizzes, we may have them to do written reports, essay, reaction papers. So pwede pong at the end of a unit, at the end of a chapter, so pwede po nating ibigay yan. So summative assessment in written form. So that's written work. Next, we have performance task. So performance task, on the other hand, allows the learner to show what they know and are able to do in diverse ways. So we may do it by doing performances, or by asking our child to do a certain product. Ganyan po. Because not all subject naman po ay kailangan may ma-perform ang ating mga anak. So, iba po pwede po natin siyang gawin by asking them to make a product or a project. And Sir Dan discussed a while ago that this performance task may be integrative or may be integrated from one another. Next, we have quarterly assessment. So quarterly assessment, on the other hand, measures students' learning at the end of the quarter. So ito po ngayon, our dear parents, these are all recorded because these will be the basis of grading our child. So these may be in the form of objective test. So when we say objective test, yun po yung may question, then may correct answer. Performance-based assessment, or a combination thereof. So we may do it using written test, pwede din namang performance-based tests, depende po sa subject. So yan po tatlo, written works, performance tasks, and quarterly assessments are the component of grading our child based on the Department of Education. Now, here in MDSF, for our for our homeschool program, we add another one. So that is yes, that one, the family-led portfolio review. So the family-led portfolio, kayo po ang gagawa nito, our dear parents. So it gives us an idea, kami po dito sa school, sa MDSF, it will give us an idea on what the child has accomplished and learned for a particular quarter. The homeschool advisor will conduct a review of the portfolio, an intensive review of the portfolio, and the advisor will also conduct an interview of the child and the learning facilitator. So, i-interviewin po ni homeschool advisor. So, each level po, makakaroon po tayo ng homeschool advisor. So, si homeschool advisor, he or she will do an interview of the child as well as the learning facilitator. So, pwede pong yung parent or yung private tutor na kinuha nyo po to be the learning facilitator to determine if learning takes place at home. So those are the 4 components on how are we going to grade our child. So first, we have written work. So those are the quizzes, essay, book reports that we may ask our child to do. Then we also have performance task. As much as possible, we are suggesting to do integrative performance task assessment. Then we also have quarterly assessment. Ang quarterly assessment po, school naman po ang magpo-provide sa inyo. So we will do that every quarter. And then last, we have the family-led portfolio review, which will be done by you, our learning facilitator, and your child, and it will be reviewed by the homeschool advisor. Okay, So these are the component, or these are, ito po yung mga percentage, these are the percentage of each component. So for languages, when we say languages po, these are the subjects English and Filipino, together with Aralin Panlipunan and Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao or Values Education. So for written works, we have 30%, performance tasks that comprise of 50%, quarterly assessment 10%, and portfolio review another 10%. So as you can notice, across all subject areas, same po ng percentage ang atin pong quarterly assessment and portfolio review. So magba-vary lang po tayo sa written works and performance stats. For science and math, written works, we have 40%. Performance tasks, we also have 40%. For MAPE, TLE is for grade 4, 5, and 6. And computer education, we have 20% for written work, 60% for performance tasks, 10% for portfolio review, and quarterly assessment. As you notice, our dear parents, the Department of Education has a bigger percentage to performance task kasi iyan naman po talaga yung dapat, hindi dapat tayo nag-i-stay lang dun sa remembering part of Bloom's taxonomy, but rather on how they will apply what they know, and how will they create something from what they know po. So ayan po, our dear parents, I hope you take note of these percentages. So yan po ang percentage ng iba't ibang subject sa bawat component po para magkaroon po ng grade ang ating mga student. Next, please. Okay, so here's an example naman po on how to compute our the grade of our child for a quarter. So ang ginamit po natin dito ay 30%, 50%, 10%, and 10%. So ito po ay yung sa languages. So for example po sa English, ang raw scores po ng inyong mga anak sa written works or sa quizzes, essays, nakakuha po siya ng 63 over 65 ang total. So you just have to divide that, 63 divided by 65, then multiply the answer to 100%, then the answer, you're going to multiply again the answer to 0.30 or 30%. Because the written works is 30%. So it will give you a weighted score of 29.8. Next, for performance task, which is 50%. So let us assume that your child got 50 out of 60 from the performance task. So bali kayo po ang mag-grade dito, our dear parents. So 50 divided by 60, then the answer, multiply it by 100, then multiply again by 0.50. So it will give you a weighted score of 41.67. So for quarterly assessment, which will be provided by the school every quarter, let us suppose that your child got 55 out of 60 item exam. So 55 divided by 60, multiply by 100, and then multiply again by 0.10 or 10%. So it will give you 9.17 weighted score. Now, for the portfolio review, let us assume that the rubric po na gagamitin namin ay may 40 items. So 40 po yung score na makukuha sa rubric. So let us assume na ang nakuhang grade ni child at the learning facilitator from the family-led portfolio review ay 35%, 35 out of 40. So just divide that. 35 divided by 40, multiply by 100, and multiply again by 0.10, it will give you 8.75 weighted score. So you will just have to add 29.08, 41.67, 9.17, and 8.75. So just add them all together. It will give you an initial grade of 88.67. Now, ito na bang 88.67 ang final grade ng inyong mga anak? So no, because the DepEd po is using a transmutation table. So we just have to look 88.67 and then kung ano yung equivalent niya, that will be the final grade of your child. So in this case, the equivalent of 88.67 in the DepEd transmutation table is 92. So that's gonna be your child's grade in English for the first quarter. Next slide, please. So Ito po yung transmutation table na sinasabi ko. So available po siya sa DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015. So ang range po niya ay 87.20 to 88.79. So dyan po pasok yung initial grade po natin. So ang score po niya na makuha or transmuted grade niya ay 92. So here's the complete transmutation table. So as I have said, available po siya sa DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015. So lastly po, I just want to share something about integrity. So when we say integrity po, that's doing the correct thing or the right thing even if no one is watching. So tayo po, our dear parents, I know po na medyo bias po talaga tayo lagi sa ating mga anak because of course, mga anak po natin yan eh. So, yun po, kagaya ng sabi po ni Sir Dan, let us promote tough love. Ngayon po na magiging homeschool teacher po tayo or tayo magiging facilitator ng learning, let us not rob them the opportunity na maging successful or ma-discover nila yung mga sarili nila through the learning process that we are doing. So I hope po na kahit walang nakatingin or walang mga school authority na nagbabantay sa atin, we will be honest dun sa mga grades na makukuha ng ating mga anak. So yun lamang po, our dear parents. Thank you so much po again and God bless us all.
Thank you, Sir Jomar. Maraming salamat. Ayan, as you can see, our dear parents, no, we've been mentioning this word a lot of times already ever since we started this family onboarding, the word integrity. Talaga pong this actually noong June 6, I also capped off my hour session with this word. Kasi po dahil sa a big part of our enrollees in Play Sagradan, we are all first-timers. We came from the traditional way of teaching wherein we send our children to school, say bye-bye, bahala na si teacher, and then turo si teacher. After first quarter, we do parent-teacher conference, kamusta, bigay ng grade, ganyan. Ngayon po talaga, tayo talaga, malaking part ng grade ng ating mga bata ay manggagaling talaga po sa bahay. So, later, I will also be touching on, yung parang pinaka-reason po natin bakit natin ginagawa to. And I hope our dear parents that we are one in this advocacy na yung homeschooling. Actually, nako, I don't wanna, baka maunahan ko yung ating next speaker, ang ating guest speaker dun sa mga i-share niya. Actually, I mentioned this in the start of this session. When we were conceptualizing this, siya agad yung unang-unang gusto kong invite kasi personally, she's my friend at kilalang-kilala ko rin po yung mga anak niya. Alam ko kung gaano kagaling na mga bata, not just academically, pero ang mga values nitong mga bata na to talagang wala kayong masasabi. Alam natin na sila ay pinalaki ng mga magulang na talagang very intentional about their parenting at yung pagpapalaki nila sa mga batang ito. So without further ado, let me present to you our guest speaker for today, Mrs. Joy Likud. Mrs. Joy. Hello? Miss Joy, are you here? Teacher Bridge? Okay, parang medyo nag-leave yata si Miss Joy. Baka nagkaroon ng technical difficulty. Let me check lang po our dear parents, ha? Okay. Okay, sige. Alright, medyo nagkakaroon lang daw po ng technical difficulty si Mrs. Likud. So teacher, siguro we can proceed muna dun sa LMS walkthrough mo. Okay. Alright. So siguro po para actually originally talagang last si Mrs. Joy, kaya lang po dahil meron din siyang schedule. Kaya po pinasok na natin siya sa gitna, pero mas maganda po talaga ideally nasa huli na siya para at least makarinig tayo experience ng mga sharing from an experienced homeschooling mom. Sige, Teacher Bridget, can you please take the floor? Teacher Bridget will be, actually Teacher Bridget is our program coordinator. So siya po ang lagi niyong nakikita from the very start, interview. Siya din yung sumasagot sa lahat ng mga inquiries. Ano pa ba? Lahat ng mga kailangan i-coordinate about this. We will be having homeschool advisors for each department. However, when taking a look at the program as a whole, siya yung madalas nating makikita. Okay, Teacher Bridget, are you ready?
Yes, Teacher Kai.
All right. Okay, Teacher Bridget, please take the floor. Thank you.
So, thank you po, Teacher Kai, and good afternoon, dear parents and teachers. And I'm here today to show you how to navigate the Learning Management System, or the LMS. So first, just go to your web browser and then type in the mdsflms.com. Enter. So you will be directed to our homepage, and this is how it looks like. Okay. And dear parents, please secure the login credentials that were given to you by our school registrar. So just type here the username and the password, and then click login. Okay. So here you will see your child's dashboard. You will see the course where your child is enrolled to. And now let's assume that your child is enrolled to Play Sagradan, grade 6 level. Just click on the course. Okay, and here we are seeing the information about the course. So the name of the teacher, contact email, and the contact number. And we also have here some buttons. The first one is the announcements. So if you want to know what's new about the Play program, just click on this one and you will see those updates. We also have the calendar. When you click on this one, okay, you will see here the important dates to remember that I will be showing you later on. Okay, and we also have the consultation hours. So for the consultation hours, I'm available at 10:15 to 11 a.m. session in the morning, then 2:45 and to 3:30 p.m. So for the afternoon session. If you wish to confer with your child's advisor, just message me. Okay, set an appointment through my email, bridgetroseronquillo@mdsf.edu.ph. Okay, so dear parents, here you will see also the first quarter. Click on this one. And for us to view the curriculum guide, the one that we have promised you, and the one that we are discussing since the start of our onboarding meeting. So please click on the subjects below. So for the grade 6 level, they have this subjects: English, Math, Science, Filipino, ESP, MAPE, Araling Panlipunan, PLE, and Computer Education. So let's try to click on English. Okay, so inside it is the curriculum guide. Just click on this link and it will be automatically downloaded to your computer. So let's take a look. Okay, dear parents, this is the sample curriculum guide for English grade 6. Okay, so again, the curriculum guide, it's a set of it's a structured document that contains lessons and academic content that we will use to organize and teach a specific subject. So you will see here the content standard, performance standard, yung mga kanina pa pong ina-explain nila teachers, the concept and the learning competencies that your child has to acquire or to learn in each subject area within the quarter. Okay. Ayan po. Okay. So, that's how we can download yung mga files po na inilalagay namin sa LMS. Just click on the link. And also, I want to remind them and inform the parents na again po, we meet the minimum competencies required by the DepEd, but since we are a private institution, we enrich the curriculum most especially po dun sa JC and AC level natin na talagang ang mga teachers nagko-customize pa sila para lang magkaroon ng better understanding yung ating mga parents para masunod talaga, ma-hit natin yung target natin ng mga competencies. And of course, there will be times parents na kailangan po nating magpasa, mag-submit ng mga outputs ng inyong mga anak sa amin. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to upload those outputs? So let's try this one. Click on the math. Okay, and then here, so ang mga ipapasa po natin, siguro yung mga petas, mga pictures or videos, para lang, maging updated po kami sa mga activities na ginagawa nyo. Actually, kung hindi lang po talaga pandemic nga na pwede tayong magkaroon ng face-to-face, dapat talaga mas madalas yung pagkikita natin, mas madalas yung marereport niyo po sa amin kung ano yung mga ginagawa ng mga bata. Pero, ayun nga, mayroon tayong pandemic, so, magkakaroon na lang po tayo ng ilang announcements para po makapag-submit kayo. So this is how are we going to submit. So click on this one. Okay. Okay, let me just switch their parents to student role. Okay, so you will see how the course look like from your end. Okay. So here, just add submission, or if you already submitted an output, you can edit the submission para makapag-try po ulit kayo na makapag-send. Yan. So if it's a file, if it's a picture, then just drag, for example, this one, drag nyo lang po siya. Ayan. And save changes. Ayan. So, nakapagpasa na po kayo nun. Pero, ayun po, dear parents, we require para magkaroon tayo ng talagang compilation of all the outputs na nagawa ng mga anak ninyo throughout the year. Pwede po tayo na sa Google Drive, like this one. Ito po ang Google Drive. Okay, just click on the Google and click on this icon, then Drive. Ayan, dear parents, gawa po tayo ng ating sariling folder, bagong folder. And let's name it Play Sagradan. Okay. And then please, dito po natin i-compile lahat ng outputs ng ating mga anak. For example, for the month of August, yan. Ito po yung mga sample petas or activities. Upload po natin siya dito. Ayan. And then, after nyo po ma-upload dito sa Google Drive, kung ang kailangan po namin ay yung important dates to remember, for example lang, ito yung ipapasa ninyo sa amin, just right-click, get shareable link. For the restrictions po, please change it to anyone with the link so everyone can view it. And don't forget to copy the link kasi ito po yung kailangan yung i-attach doon sa ating LMS. Copy link. Balik po tayo sa LMS. Okay. We can edit again the submission or add submission sa mga susunod pong try natin. And parents, don't forget na i-click po itong icon na to, link icon, paste the URL here, open a new window, create link. And that's it, save changes. Ayan. So, kapag ganito po parents, shinare nyo sa amin yung link, we will be able, the teachers will be able now to check what's in your Google Drive, yung file na nasa Google Drive ninyo. Automatic po, madadirect na ang teachers doon. So, that's all po. That's how we can download and submit yung mga outputs and files na kakailanganin natin for our homeschool journey. And we also have the important dates to remember. Let me show you. Ayan, dear parents, nakikita nyo po, pwede po tayong mag-screenshot so that you can mark your calendars na. But these important dates to remember, tentative po pa rin po sila because of our situation now na biglang nagkakaroon ng announcement from the LGU or from our national government. So, tentative pa po ito. Okay po, nakapag-screenshot na tayo. So, for the important dates to remember, nandito ang ating quarterly exam, family-led portfolio review, parent training workshop, and the virtual meeting. Okay, so that's all, dear parents. And if you have questions and you need assistance, feel free to ask us anytime po. Ayan. Thank you po. Thank you, dear parents.
Alright, thank you, Teacher Bridget. Virtual clap again for Teacher Bridget. Thank you so much. Nako, si Teacher Bridget, yan ang forever na maaasahan po talaga. I mean, personally, ako, kahit anong sabihin kay Teacher Bridget, lahat ng imposible nagiging posible dahil sa kanya. Thank you again, Teacher Bridge. Again, she is our program coordinator. So right now, ready na si Mrs. Likod to share with us yung mga tips. Sabi nga po nila, no, para tayong isang sasakyan, parang gina-jumpstart natin yung ating mga makina. So, this is very important na makinig tayo sa kanya para nang sa ganun magkaroon tayo ng idea as someone who is an experienced homeschooling mom for how many years already. At katulad po na sinabi ko kanina, dapat talaga para maging credible ang isang tao dun sa field niya, at least kailangan makita natin na she or he is walking the talk, no? So ako po personally as her friend, masasabi ko po talaga when it comes to homeschooling, she's really, walking the talk. Siya din yung go-to person ko simula nung may desire pa ako dun sa na i-homeschool yung mga anak ko pre-pandemic. Siya na po yung pinagtatanungan ko kahit feeling ko nung time na yun imposible as a working mom and as someone na administrator sa school. Siya na yung marami na akong tanong. So, Mrs. Joy, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yes, thank
Can
you.
hear me?
All right. Take the floor, Mrs. Likod.
Okay, thank you, Teacher Kai, for that introduction. Medyo na-pressure ako, but Kai and I met 7 years ago, and I'll just give you a brief introduction of about myself. Like Teacher Kai said, I have been a homeschool mom for 8 years now. So it's I know that from 10 o'clock kanina pa tayo nag-i-inject ng information and it can be overwhelming. But take heart because homeschooling is fun. And we're gonna go through this. I have 8 points. It's 1 point for every year that I have been a homeschool mom. And I have been married for 14 years, and I have two kids. My eldest son, Air, is just finished grade 7, going to grade 8, and my daughter, who is 10, just finished grade 4. So grade 5 na siya. And they were born in Canada because that's where I grew up. Pero 7 years ago, I moved to the Philippines, and that's when the homeschool journey really started. Sabi ko, it's easier to transition my kids to their schooling program pag homeschool sila. And sabi ko, maybe when they get here, they'll go to traditional school. Pero I find that homeschooling really worked for my children. I can see their progression and things like that. Now, just let me know if you can't hear me or I get cut off. Kanina I was having technical difficulties, so just I don't know. Makai will let me know. Okay, so let's start. So jump starting your homeschool journey. Ayan. So these are practical steps on how you can better homeschool your children, and also not be anxious and not be putting so much burden on yourself. Okay, so point number one is pray. Okay, so I just want to read a passage of scriptures from the Bible because it's the most important book, right, that we learn from. It's in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, and it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." So in everything, it says, let your request be made known to God. I put here, before we start our homeschool day, or every day really, I ask God for help. I ask God for strength to help me kasi you'll realize na napakahirap po talaga ng trabaho ng ating mga teachers. So palakpakan natin sila. Ang hirap po mag-discipline, you will find that out on your own, right? And of course you're the mom, you're the dad, you know how your children is. And pero ngayon you'll be able to experience firsthand kung paano sila mag-aral. So you'll need help. We'll need all the help that we can get. And I pray for my children. I pray that God will give them wisdom and discipline as they go to school. And it's also a great opportunity to thank God for the milestones that they reach. So yung mga when you realize, oh, visual learner pala yung anak ko, and then nakikita mo firsthand, oh, thank God that I realized those things. And yeah, celebrate every waking moment. It's very important that we celebrate those moments with your children. Okay, so that's point number one, is to pray, to lift up to God whatever, whenever, right, we talk to him. And number two is review the rules and regulations of the school that you are enrolled in. Of course, that's MDSF. Okay, so when I started homeschool, the ultimate thing that they said is you have to know the rules and regulations of the Department of Education. And so I did my research, I had to do all those things. But for us, for you parents of the MDSF, our dear parents, the teacher Chris, teacher Kai, and the whole team, they've done all the research. They've done all those hard work. So they are such a blessing. They know the requirements of DepEd, may research nila yung grading system and assessment. Mahirap po yon for an independent homeschooler. But because you're enrolled in MDSF, they are such a blessing. So thank you. And sub-point for number 2 is know who to ask if you have any questions. Teacher Kai emphatically said, if you have any questions, kanina pa yung sinasabi, this meeting is gonna be recorded. So if you have any questions, you could just keep going back, and I'm sure you have contacts with your teachers on specific things. Know all their information. I want to share to you a practical tip that I have. So I don't know if you can see, but I have my homeschool notebook. everything that I have regarding homeschool, actually, teacher Ria was talking, si teacher Jomar, teacher Dan, teacher, what I was note taking na kasi this is my homeschool notebook. And I know we have a phone, it's easy access, right? But this one is, if you're like me, I like to scribble and I like to have one thing that, one place where I can put things, right? So I have this notebook. This is probably my third notebook for homeschool, and yung mga contact info, emails, numbers, new things that if I'm going to let's say a homeschool convention like the conventions that are available to us, I'll bring my notebook and I'll take note. So everything that has homeschool information, it's all going to be in my notebook. So I really, if you are like me, go get yourself a notebook and get a thick one kasi you'll go through it really really quick, and don't forget to say that it's yours so that nobody steals it. Okay, number 3, and we're gonna go through this quickly, but if you have questions, let teacher Kai know, and then she'll let me know. Like I said, Kaya and I are very good friends. I've known her for 7 years now. And even though I live in Manila and she lives in Baliwag, we've stayed connected all throughout these years. Okay, number 3, very important po ito. And I think teacher, I don't know who mentioned about it. I think it's teacher Ria or teacher Bridget who said about you schedule your dates. This is one thing that we want to have planned out before we start. So having a routine is healthy and it minimizes stress and any delay. Now, if you're new to scheduling your homeschool, or scheduling or putting homeschool in your lifestyle, okay lang po yun kasi we don't want to force the schedule to fit whatever your lifestyle is. We enjoy the flexibility of homeschool. So, for example, if you're a morning person, but your child is not, then you put uh, school, the school hours sa hapon, maybe after lunch or before lunch, when they're, nakapaghilamos na sila, na nakapaglaro na sila ng konti, ganon. So, um, the example of my schedule looks like this, and I think I have a copy, right, teacher Bridget? Okay, so my kids' school is during 12:30 to 4:30. So this is after lunch na. And I'm not going to read to you all. You can just read through it. But notice that their school is only a few hours. So 3 to 4 hours. It was actually when Snow was in preschool, half an hour lang talaga yung school niya, and everything was just play. And I'll inject PE and music and arts during the whole day. But now, and I think from grades 1 to 3, 2 hours maximum. 2 hours of maximum na yon in their, di ba? 2 hours lang. My son nga is grade 7, and he feels like pag 4 hours na yung school niya, sobrang tagal na. And I would tell him, alam mo ba, nung kami pumapasok, 8 hours. Tapos may homework ka pa after. And that's what I love about homeschool, is because we can be flexible. We can increase the numbers and decrease the numbers of hours that we spend teaching our kids or their homeschool. I'd also like to point out that on Mondays, kasi po, Mondays are my husband's day off. It's the only day that he is off. He works at the church, so Sunday is his busiest day. Saturday busy then. Tapos so Monday is the day that he can rest. I didn't input any school that day. I put family day or field trips if we have opportunity go. Last year, I think the highlight of our field trip was we went to go to Malacanang with other homeschool parents and other homeschool kids, and that was really fun. And the everyday schedule of my kids. So Tuesdays we'll have language arts and ADSD, which is applied skills and technology. And then you can see yung mga language na I input dun sa araw na yon. That's how my schedule looks like. But right now, it's because my kids are enrolled actually in Canada. It's summer for them. They have summer until August. Tapos this will be my daily schedule again in September. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so number 4, think about what your children will need to be learning and focusing on. And I know that they've touched a great deal of amount, or yung mga speakers natin kanina, of what the curriculum will look like, what it's important for us to know the outcomes and the goals, and and that can be pretty overwhelming kung lahat kailangan mong tingnan, kailangan malaman. So what I do is I open the book that I got for my kids, and I'll skim through it. So for example, this is the book that I'll be using for Snow, who's going to grade 5. And what I'll do is I'll just go to the very front page and titingnan ko yung mga table of contents. Sorry, I don't know. I know it's small. But kung nandun lahat ng goals ko, then iskim ko lang siya, and I don't look at it every day. Mapapagod po tayo mga teachers, mga moms, mga dads, if we look at those every day. Let's just, read through it and let's have it at the back of our heads. And I think it was teacher Dan who mentioned earlier that there's project-based learning. So if you get a Lego, that can be for math already, or engineering, or carpentry, or things like that. Yung mga imagine, you can input that in your child's learning as well. And then so you can also write down all my SLPs, which is student learning plan, or the learning plan, are all here. Believe it or not, magulo siya. I'm not gonna show you, pero lahat ng ideas ko, halimbawa I'm preparing for my student learning plan, I'll write it all down. Lahat ng kailangan nila, I'll write it all down, and then that's when I'll type. So, napaka-handy po ng notebook na to. So a brief example of my SLP, or the learning plan, looks like this. But I think the teachers in your grade level, they've already set that goals, right? So I will set a personal goal um, for this is for my daughter Leia Snow, and because I know I remember setting a student learning plan for her when she was grade 1. So supposedly, grade 1, di ba dapat nagbabasa na? But then, my daughter didn't start reading, yung mabilis na reading, until she was 7 years old, which is really frustrating because my son, who is 13 now, he will, nung 1 year old pa lang siya, he he will recognize 3-letter words, like one, or boy, or 1 year old. So I'm like, oh, yung susunod kong anak, dapat ganun din. And so I was forcing my daughter to read like that, which is not healthy kasi na-overwhelm yung anak ko, and I was getting frustrated. I was getting mad at her kasi pinupush ko talaga siyang magbasa. But and you will learn the characteristics of your sons and your daughters, na kung ano yung personality, yung identity, yung characters, na kung sino sila na ginawa ni God. God molded them kasi specifically so that they will fulfill the purpose that God has for them. So magkaiba sila. My son, Air, you can sit him down for 2 hours. When he starting in grade 1, you can sit him down, give him a book, and he will sit down for 2 hours without a break. He will finish that. My daughter, however, will want to take a break every 5 minutes. So magkaiba, so challenging for the first few years. But you'll realize na as you go through this homeschool adventure with your children, yes, adventure po talaga siya, you'll learn that ganun pala yung learning style ng mga anak ko. Kasi maybe, they're gonna be the next, Van Gogh, or the next Lea Salonga. They don't like this part, pero they like singing. Yung mga ganon. And that's what I love about homeschool talaga, is because you get to see your child grow in this aspect every single day. And being a part of that, it just gives me joy. Kahit nakakawala po ng patience, pero wag po kayong magagalit sa sarili nyo if nawawalan kayo ng patience, because that's normal. So what I do is, when I'm getting impatient na, I will step out. I will step out for 10 minutes, minsan half an hour, tagal no? So that I can take a breather, and then I'll be refreshed, and then go back to homeschooling. Now, Um, so another, I think it was Teacher Jongor who mentioned integrity. Now, during the SLP, that's one of my main goals is for my children to learn integrity. Kasi po, napakahirap po talaga, dear parents, na nobody is watching you. Nobody is checking or nobody is accountable when you're alone with your children, especially when they're taking quizzes, right? And my son, he does he's self study na siya. So what that means is he'll go on the computer and he will learn everything, all the subjects that is scheduled for that day by himself. And then there'll be quizzes. And then when there's quizzes, he he has, my option siya, although of course that option is not given to him to go back or to open his book or to go research on the internet. Pero I told him that you have to be honest about your grades because if you continue this path na nag-look ka or you looked at a book to know the right answer, it's not important. I mean, important yung right answer, pero it's not as important as building your character. Ano naman yung tama yung sagot mo nung grade 7 ka, pero later on in life, hindi ka honest. I told my son, if you can cheat now at this small part of your life, school lang yan, what will you do in the future when you're an adult and when you're being hired at a very important company, right? Kasi kung ano yung na-build na foundation when you're young, that is the kind of attitude, the kind of character that you will carry on in your adult life. So I always inject those kinds of wisdom in my kids. And you can do that too when you're teaching your kids. You can tell them every day, every single waking moment, I love you, son. I love you, daughter. You're a child of God. You can do this, especially if they're going through something difficult. My son, when he doesn't understand math, he'll ask, or he'll feel really bad about himself. And you have an opportunity to encourage them. And that's what I love about homeschool. Okay, four more slides. Yeah, four more points. Okay, number 5. Ito, prepare a special place dedicated to homeschool. Okay, so I live in a very tight space. I live in a condo unit, 77 square meters. O, diba, ang liit, and you can't go outside because of the pandemic, right? You want to prepare a special place dedicated to homeschool. So if I can do it in this small space, you can too. So our dining table where I am right now, it transforms. So during breakfast, lunch, and dinner, yeah, mga plato, of course, ulam. But on school hours, like 12:30 to 4:30, it's filled with books and pencils and crayons, and it's when they know that I've put out a box. It's important to put a bin. If you can put all your stuff in a bin, lagay mo sa lamesa, my kids know, it's school time na. Tapos na yung play, school time na. And when you do that, this is considered your classroom. It could be any place in your house. It could be, sometimes it could be the living room, the dining, the bedroom. Pero the bedroom kasi it can sometimes be difficult dahil ano siya, kama siya, you might wanna fall asleep. So yun, that's a very practical thing to do. Okay, number 6, start investing in books. Like what teacher Dan said earlier, sabi niya, when you read a book, you they can go to places, especially right now. The kids are very, excuse me, very, tawag dito, they're stuck at home. So I told you my daughter, diba, hindi siya nagbasa until she was 7. So what I did is I invested in some books. Some of them can be, some of them I only bought and mga on sale lang sa, I don't remember the place. Pero I looked at the books and then, would you like to read this? Ganon. If I can show you just a few books that I invested on. In my house, di ba napakalit ng bahay ko, I have 4 bookshelves. My husband is a reader. My son, reader. So kami dalawang babae, we share a shelf. So I want to show you some books that my daughter wants to read. So some of them may mga movie. So let's say Charlotte's Web, there's a movie, right? Pero I told her, it's so much more better, so much more na nga better pa, di ba? It's so much better to read than to watch kasi you will hear and you will imagine and you will know the thoughts of the characters. I also have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So ganon. And then I found out that my daughter she doesn't like being pushed to read. So what I did, I just bought these things and I just left it in the shelf, or I'll put it right in front of, wherever she is. And then she became interested in reading. And so ngayon, ano na siya, she reads every day. She'll read books like, ito pa, Holes. There's a movie about this too, and I told her that you want to, yeah, know the type of characters that they have. And then The Hobbit also. Yeah. Okay, so those are just some books that my daughter reads. Now, she's in grade 4. My son, though, uh, itong anak ko, different, ano naman to, different reader. So he's 13, but he will read novels like, I just want to show you a bit of things that he reads. For example, this is a Percy Jackson book. Ang kapal niya, 'di ba? He will read this for 2 hours straight. That's the kind of reader that he is. And Percy Jackson and other, I don't know, I think there's 20 books in total in this series, and he read it in during the Christmas break. So 20 books in that Christmas break. Ganun po siya. And I didn't force him to read. It was just available for him. So we made that, pag may gusto siyang libro, okay, we just buy it right away because I know that he loves reading books. And when you buy books, we want to buy books that they're particularly interested in, and not the ones. Sorry, pinapawisan ako. Kasi ganito po ako pag na-excite. Pinapawisan. So want to buy books that are particularly, kung ano yung gusto ng mga anak natin. Okay, number 7, ayan, 2 points na lang. Number 7 is connect with other homeschool families. Next slide, please. Okay, so having a support group will give you a chance to learn from each other and know that you're not going through this by yourself. Lahat po tayo may pinagdadaan natin yung mga, so maybe in here, in this uh, Google Meet right now, if you know someone, you connect with them and then you can share to each other what you're going through. And what I love about groups like this is you can actually uh, plan other activities with the children that in that group. So, like I said, punta kami ng Malacanang, punta kami ng aquarium. Ngayon, medyo mahirap po kasi nga pandemic. Pero after, you can do those things. Okay, number 8, and probably my favorite point, is don't forget playtime. I know we want to reach all A's for our children. Dapat lahat 100%. But don't forget playtime, because playing with your kids will bring out the child in you. So my children, we invested in board games, Monopoly, Jenga, Kahoot was mentioned earlier. It's a board. It's trivia games, and giving time for play will re-energize your children. So if you find na okay, after an hour of school, medyo ano na sila, tired, we 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 want to take a break. That's what I love about homeschool, is that pag pagod na yung estudyante, break muna kahit 5 minutes para re-energize sila. And you yourself will also enjoy it, playing with slime. My daughter has a whole shelf full of slime. Gustong-gusto niya yung slime. My son, my son will read. Yeah. My son will read his books. But he loves basketball, pero because of we're stuck here in the condo, ang hirap po mag-basketball. Nagre-reklamo nasa baba. But he'll play basketball with the small ball. Okay, so that ends my points. I just want to also remind everybody, all our dear parents, that our ultimate goal is for our children to not, I mean, though we want them to have the highest grades, we want them to get the best opportunities, but we want to build their character in a godly form. We want them to succeed in life. Kasi later on po, they're going to be the next leaders of this nation. They're going to be the next politicians, the next doctors, the next lawyers. And while we have them right now, when we can be face to face with them, they are at our home, we have a chance to be a part of that molding of God. We have a chance to rear them in a fashion that we want them to see succeed. You know, like integrity and love and joy and all those things. And the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, which is a life verse for homeschoolers, so that when they grow up, when they grow old, they will not depart from those teachings. They will not depart from the teachings that you, moms and dads, have taught them. So I hope that may natutunan po tayo, and you don't have to copy everything that I said, like the notebook. And but if that works for you, I hope that I imparted some wisdom. Thank you so much for listening, for your time. I hope you've eaten lunch already. I ate mine earlier na. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity, Kai. MDSF is definitely a blessing to me and to a lot of families. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mrs. Likod. Grabe, no? Actually, ako po, hindi pa po ako nagla-lunch, pero para nag-lunch na din ako sa sobrang kompleto po nung mga pinresent natin. After the technicalities, ito naman po si Mrs. Likod really sharing his, I mean, sharing her jump-starting tips. Sabi po ni Mr. De Guzman, hearing Miss Joy's journey as a teaching parent really eases the stress and pressure of being a first-time teacher. Appreciate sharing your experiences. Tapos si Miss Yai Brooks naman, virtual clap. Si Sir Ilar naman, thanks, Joy, for reducing our stress by sharing your wisdom. I think I can do this for my son. God bless. Wow, no? Talaga pong, actually ako rin po nung, ganyan po talaga si Mrs. Likod, napaka-calm. Kahit nasa stress siya, kalmado pa rin siya. Isa siyang huwarang, talagang modelo na pwede nating sundan. Pero just like what Mrs. Likod shared with us, of course, iba-iba pa rin po talaga tayo ng context, iba-iba pa rin po yung needs ng bawat family natin. Meron tayong mga pwedeng mga kuhanin sa mga sharing na binibigay ng mga experts sa homeschooling, pero i-draw pa rin natin yung sarili nating adventure. Yun nga yung sabi ni Miss Likod. Again, thank you so much. Ang takeaway ko kay Miss Likod is yung playtime. Actually, yung giving importance to your relationship more than the academics, not to demean naman po yung, to devalue academics, no? Pero sabi nga niya, minsan may time na parang it's not yung homeschooling is not going well for this day. Baka pwedeng pahinga muna hanggang sa maging okay si teaching parent. And then yung bata din, wag natin pilitin. Yun ang kagandahan ng homeschool, napaka-flexible niya. So, thank you again, Mrs. Likod. I personally, being your friend, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot through your sharing. Thank you. So, okay, eto na po. Last na po to. Pwede na po namin kayong let go. Pasensya na po ulit. Talagang gusto lang namin na maibigay sa inyo yung gusto naming mga i-impart before you start your homeschool adventure or journey. Mag-start po tayo ng August 3, sabay-sabay po tayo. So, yun po yung official start ng school year natin. So, as I do my closing remarks, I would like to share with you personally a book that helped our family to really decide on whether we are gonna give this homeschooling a try. So, Teacher Bridge, ito po yung title ng book na yon, Why You Should Homeschool. It was written by Edric and Joy Mendoza. Actually, they are a homeschooling couple. Meron silang 6 na anak. Para talagang parang small classroom na rin. 6 na anak. Tapos they've been, if I'm not mistaken, they've been homeschooling for 14 years now. No, grabe. Talagang masasabi natin na itong alternative mode of education na ito ay posible talaga. And thank God for His provision na in-acknowledge to ng DepEd to be a legitimate naman na practice na ng way of educating children. So ito pong book na to, I would like to share with you an excerpt po na talagang nakapagsabi sa amin nung nakapag-inspire sa aming mag-asawa para subukan namin ito before pandemic pa, no? So, sige, Teacher Bridge. Actually, minention dito, when you know your why, your how will follow. So, kahit ano pong mga pinag-usapan natin ngayon, I would like to challenge each and every one of you, our dear parents, to identify your why. Kayo pong mag-asawa, pag-usapan niyo pong mabuti, ano po ba yung why? Again, we are different in our whys. We have a lot of parang differences dun sa ating rason kung bakit pinili natin tong homeschooling na to for this school year. In fact, this is the year when the term homeschooling really stood out sa field ng education. Itong nung lumabas tong COVID-19 na to, hindi man lang tayo pinatapos ng school year ng very official, no? Pero sana po, our dear parents, talagang balikan natin yung reason natin kung bakit. I really hope and pray that our reason for giving this homeschooling a try is deeper than the pandemic. I hope that it's really not just something na pinili natin. Maybe yung iba po baka gusto lang na protektahan yung mga anak nila or from the outside world, pero unfortunately we cannot really do that for the rest of their lives, So sana po, let's ask for God's provision and let's ask Him to really plant in our hearts the right intention for homeschooling, kasi we do not want to defeat the purpose. Gusto po natin, katulad po nung shinare ni Miss Joy, no, yung kaya po nakikita niyo yung smile sa kanyang face kasi alam ko rin po yung reason niya for homeschooling. So talagang it's really aligned din po dun sa pag-fulfill niya dun sa purpose na dinesign sa kanya ni God. So, I hope when this pandemic is over, maitawid po natin tong school year na to ng mapayapa at magkikita-kita po tayo, no? At pag nakita tayo, there will be, a big smile on our faces while saying, Teacher Bridget, can you please go to the next slide? That home is school. So, next page, next slide, please. Thank you, our dear parents. Thank you for your time. Maraming salamat po for sticking around kahit medyo nahaba po tayo. Let's continue soaring high in our homes. Soar high, Sagradans. Thank you very much. If ever po na may mga tanong po sila, please feel free to send a message to Teacher Bridget nandun, or please add our MDSF Play Sagradan Facebook group, please po, no, sa mga kahit po yung may mga friends na officially enrolled na po sa ating Play Sagradan program, sabihan po sila na i-add po yung ating group na yon, because that's exclusively created for officially enrolled families. Doon po tayo mag-sharean. Please feel free din po na i-share ninyo pag may mga nakita kayong mga conferences, articles, let's be a helping community. Mag-sharean po tayo kung ano yung mga nag-work din sa atin. Maraming salamat po. Thank you, Dr. Feliz Carpio, Sir Ilar, thank you. Thank you, teachers. Thank you for helping me explain to our parents our technicalities, no, of homeschooling their children in our institution. Mrs. Joy Likud, maraming salamat. Malaki kang tulong. Thank you, and we'll see you. Salamat po. Bye!